A brand new season of PRL is about to get rolling as we're set to go racing around some of the world's most iconic circuits. It's Season 3 in 2024 on iRacing, and PRL is back on Monday evenings with the LMP3-GT4 Challenge and, of course, the GTP-GT3 Series. Thrilled to have your company here on RaceSpotTV, and up here in the commentary booth tonight, it's myself, Dareth Thacker, delighted to be joined by Reese Gardner, and we are raring to get going for this new season with a calendar that looks like it's going to provide us some fantastic racing. You can see from the pictures we're showing you, of course, the opening round here at Watkins Glen, the classic boot layout, and Reese, I mean, this looks like it's going to be a track and a race where we're going to see a really good race to start this championship off.
Absolutely. Watkins Glen is one of the iconic American road racing circuits, one of the raft to be built in the 1950s along with Road America and Virginia International Raceway. It's been through a few changes over the years. We're running the boot layout. We've got the inner loop chicane to negotiate, which is certainly going to be a choke point, but plenty of overtaking opportunities around here, and the run up through the S's, turns 2, 3 and 4 is going to be a place to watch out for on the first lap.
Yeah, maybe looking at a little bit of contact as well as we get towards the inner loop, but looking at the calendar in general, it looks really quite well balanced. We've got Watkins Glen, of course, to start with. We go to places like Misano, Mosport, and then the Red Bull Ring and Mugello. It really does kind of combine lots of different kinds of circuits into a calendar, and ending with the Hochheim Ring and the Virginia Full Course really looks like it's going to be quite an interesting end to the season as well if the championship's still on the line.
Yeah, indeed. This is the LMP3 and GT4 schedule, and of course it is multi-class, which means the drivers are going to have to look out at Misano in particular. It's a very twisty circuit where traffic may very well be a problem, but here at Watkins Glen, also at tracks like Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, Mugello, Road America, the slipstream is going to help the LMP3s get past the GT4s. It's going to be an interesting season. Happy to be here.
Yeah, the traffic always fun to look out for. Look at a quick look at the details of the track. 74 ambient, 77 on the track. Breath of wind in the air, and nice in the evening as well. Humidity not too high, not quite what it's like in the UK at the moment over in the US of A, but really nice and cool, I'd say, for this time of year. Qualifying is getting underway, but you know, open for qualifying. These drivers on their own track, they've got no one around them, so Reese, it's not really going to be a concern for them to get stuck in the traffic.
Yeah, indeed. We've got a long time left in qualifying for the drivers to work their way through, set their times for the grid. You know, plenty of fantastic racing here at PRL, and we've got plenty of brilliant drivers in this series as well. There's so many drivers registered for this event. We've got 53 in the server at the moment. Lovely turnout for this first round.
53 drivers around a circuit such as this really can lend itself to quite a lot of action, especially with the multi-class that we are going to be seeing in this race. And you know, a whole raft of drivers on a whole raft of setups. Zach Herbert here on his VR setup. We've also got a heart rate monitor as well, just to kind of monitor how he's coping as we work our way through this race. We'll see how high that can spike, but 90, I mean, that's it's not too high. You're not going to be too worried about your blood pressure at that level. But like you said, there's still a while in qualifying, Reese. But in the grand scheme of things, 10 minutes, about 4 laps, you know, you can't really afford to make too many mistakes on the opening couple of laps because you'll apply too much pressure on yourself as you get towards the end of the session.
Yeah, indeed. And it's very easy to get off tracks here at Watkins Glen as well, particularly at turn 1, seeing the LMP3 make its way through there. You can't go too far beyond those curbs, and Watkins Glen, very much an old school circuit in many places, grass right by the sides of the circuit. It'll be easy to get around a lap, but if you want to start pushing, then the off tracks will definitely get you.
Yeah, they will. But before we really get into the meat of the action, we, of course, have to thank our sponsors for this race. Of course, Advanced Sim Racing, owned and operated by passionate sim racers. Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision5 coupon code. Racebox Sim Racing. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount using the Precision5 coupon code. Butt Kicker products, I should say, are incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Muradness as well is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Murad. Also brought to you by Mr. Hedge Sim Racing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. It's a great addition to any sim room at Mr. Hedge Sim Racing Photography. And of course, Advanced Motorsports. Get ready to learn to be fast with Advanced Motorsports and follow them on all of their socials to become a better driver and improve those lap times. So we thank all of our sponsors for our race this evening. Great to have all the support that we do, Reese, but for the drivers out on track at the moment, they're going to be focusing on getting those lap times in. We've got quite a few in so far, but the gaps, they are not big, are they? I mean, looking, in the mid-pack, at the high mid-pack, particularly in the LMP3 category, there's, a tenth between 3, 4, 5 drivers in parts.
Yeah, very close fighting in the LMP3 category as Jake Browning gets a big slide on coming through the ankle of the boot and down to the toe. Very difficult to pick the right line through here. Of course, the LMP3 class all driving the same car, the Ligier JSP320. There'll be a bit more variation in the GT4 class. Plenty of brands are represented in that category, but balance of performance seems pretty good. The Mercedes, always a popular option. Aiden Young, one of the more successful of the GT4 runners here at Precision Racing League. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah, and I mean, for you, Reese, with the choice in GT4s that you get, of course, some offer more downforce, some offer a little bit more straight line speed. At a track like Watkins Glen, when there really are not really any slow speed corners to speak of, are you looking for a car that will kind of suit that straight line speed a little bit more, maybe give you a chance down in towards the inner loop?
Yeah, that's the thing, Watkins Glen, I think, is a bit of a compromise track in a lot of cars. It's a fast circuit, obviously, so you want a car with good straight line speed, but you want a car that also has good cornering speed as well for the carousel and the entire boot section. I think you'd need to compromise between those two aspects of the car in order to get the best time around here. It's difficult to pick, in a varied class like GT4. Of course, you've got plenty of choices, but I would say, with how varied this track is in cornering speeds and the like, I think we're going to be seeing some very close matchups.
Yeah, hopefully so. It's always like what we like to see up here in the commentary box, of course, with the really nice close times. I'm looking particularly at that GT4 class at the top. Aaron Myers currently leads the times. You can see 15.5 seconds off of the pace of the Ligier LMP3 cars. But there's 4 drivers there, 15.5 seconds back, just about half a tenth, splitting that top 4. You look a little bit further back to Tyler Sage Anderson in P5 and Jesse Mullins in P6. But again, the times are really, really quite close, and it's exactly what we want to be seeing with only 1 minute 20 to go in this qualifying session, as it's surely going to lend itself to some nice close racing. And when you've got a new season, a clean slate in terms of the championship, we want to see lots of drivers up there really putting a name, or their name in the hat to be in that championship battle.
Indeed, we do. The top 9 of the GT4 class, all setting times in the 1 minute 53 second bracket, covered by 0.6 of a second. Really incredible stuff. Looking forward to seeing those matchups when we actually go racing. One lap pace is one thing, but can you back it up in terms of race pace? It's difficult to pick.
It's definitely going to be difficult to pick, especially with the traffic that will be coming through. Looking at 15 seconds slower, give or take, that the GT4s are compared to the LMP3s, that works out to about every 6 laps. that the LMP3s do, they'll be looking to lap the GT4 6 or 7, give or take. So quite a lot of time, really, for quite a few times that the LMP3s are going to have to be lapping some of these guys. Timer nearly hitting 0, though. Aiden Young just about going to make the line, setting a 53.4. I don't think that was an improvement in his time, and it means I think he will be starting in P4, but with the end of the session, we're going to be able to show you the qualifying results. It's going to take a little bit of a while to be going through them. As you mentioned before, Reese, 53 cars on the grid here this evening. A fantastic showing from all of these guys, and here they are. It's Jesse Mullins on pole position in the GT4 class by only 17 thousandths ahead of Aaron Myers. Sam Iorga and Aiden Young on the second row, but again, less than a tenth away. Reed Gibson and Tyler Sage Anderson, the top 6 in the opening race for this season. We roll on. Darren Rutherford in P7 with Carter James in 8th, Jared Bridwell and Adam Oskridge rounding out the top 10, just over half a second back from our leading time. Francis Castillo Romero is in 10th, and we look back further to see Jean-Philippe Tremblay in 12th. Matthew Wyckoff and Rog Ouellette, I apologise if I've messed up that name badly, on the 7th row, with Jeff Kaufhold and Christopher Rosario in 16th. Joshua Lewis and Derek Putnam round out the 9th row. As we roll further down the order is Callan Tobin and Travis Chapman in 20th, with Nathan Jennings and Roy Brown in 22nd. Declan Derber and Robert McGeehan are on the 12th row, but still less than 2 seconds off of the back of the pole setting time. Sean Mulholland and Joe Keents in 26th, and then the final few, Pascal Dufresne, James O'Brien and Will Jennings are the 29 drivers in the GT4 class. But we'll move on to the LMP3 class and the Ligier cars, and it's Alec Bergstrom who leads the way by nearly a quarter of a second ahead of Dayton Lowe. A relatively comfortable gap, you'd have to say. Dallin Vanshar is in 3rd, with Jake Browning in 4th, and Gerald Yatadko and David Duino in the top 6. We roll on to Eric Newman, Peyton Huston and Calvin Myant in the top 9. Kevin Simpson just about sneaking inside the top 10, ahead of Ian Starker and Vincent LaRue, who are rounding off the top 12 in the category. Christian Garreton and Ryan D'Oconnor in the top 14, with Nikiel Taylor and Nikos Zanidakis in the top 16. Oleg Lovkov and Javier Rodriguez in the top 18 of the grid. As we roll further on, Brian Vorch and Zach Herbert 20th, Ray Bartnikovsky and Fen Achini in the top 22, Matthew Falk and Doug Sorrentino in 23rd and 24th. Doug not able to set a lap time in the race, which means we have got all of our drivers on the grid ready to get going here. We can see a lot of them now. The conditions haven't changed from qualifying, and Reese, a big grid. I know that I've butchered up quite a few of those names while reading through them as quickly as I possibly can, but lots of cars, lots of chance for action in this race.
Yeah, 24 LMP3s and 29 GT4s. This is going to be a tough job for us to keep track of everybody around this 35-minute race, which is going to require a pit stop. That's the big draw with the Monday series here at PRL. The fuel tank is restricted, so the drivers will have to make their way into the pits for a fuel stop at some point over the course of this race. Now, from past seasons commentating this series, we usually see pit stops start to happen around the 15-minute mark, but we have drivers pushing the fuel tank, trying to pit a little bit later. Some of them will go for the early pit stop, but I think if you're up at the front, you'll want to try and extend that fuel tank as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, of course, pitting into traffic is always going to be an issue for some of these guys, especially when you've got a different class, you're lapping or you're being lapped. It's going to be so difficult to be able to judge. Everyone lining up at the moment as they make their way through the carousel. You touched upon the fact that we've got 24 LMP3s and 29 GT4s. It's going to be quite a task for us to try and keep up with all the action, but we will try our best. It's Ramiro up in the broadcast booth bringing you all the action. We thank him for giving us the pictures to be able to show you guys what great racing we're going to have to start the season here in PRL. The pace car will come in, of course, at the end of the lap. But, you know, opening couple of laps of these LMP3s are going to be crucial, aren't they, before we get to see them start to lap the GT4s, because that's really when the racing is going to start to really heat up, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to keep track of if you're an LMP3 driver, and as we saw, the actual pace difference between them is about 13, 14, up to 15 seconds if you're up at the front of the field in the LMP3s. So there's a lot of places they'll make up the time, but these cars are a bit closer matched than the GTP and GT3 series yet to come tonight. We're about to get the green flag for LMP3 though. A new season here at PRL about to get started.
Yeah, Alec Bergstrom and Dayton Lowe on the front row as we get to Watkins Glen. We've got 9 weeks of racing here on Monday nights in the LMP3 GT4 Challenge, but we are racing for the opening round as Alec Bergstrom will try to lead them away down towards the opening corner. Dayton Love and Jake Browning in behind as they really are too wide through the opening corner. A few drivers drifting a little bit wide as you can kind of push the track limits here at Watkins Glen, but they are nearly 3 wide as they make their way in towards turn 3, in towards the S's section. But the LMP3s, they've got away cleanly, and it's fair to say at the front of the GT4 battle, they've got away cleanly as well.
Yep, Jesse Mullins already away to a great lead, but they're 3 wide for third place briefly. Tyler Anderson just sneaking ahead of Aiden Young, gets into the wall, and that's going to compromise them all. The Aston Martin of Carter James taking great advantage on the way out of the S's. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah, a few drivers really just showing that they can put their car in exactly the right place and pick up positions whilst doing so. Good moves on the opening lap from drivers further up as well, but you can just see them hanging on. I had to sit back in my seat when we saw those guys going 3 wide in an instant already at the back of the GT3 category. And this is Ryan O'Connor having some issues at the back of the train. Of course, he will be ahead of the rest of the guys, but I also did see a couple of the LMP3 cars were out already. Let's see what happened to the number 95 car. And just got into the wall. Hits another car as well, and it's not what we want to see at the start of the season.
No, certainly not. I think that was Fennicini who got into the wall there. We also saw Matthew Wyckoff in the GT4 class go off at the inner loop. He's lost his rear wing and unfortunately having to crawl his way around the circuit. Darren Rutherford starting from the pits, I believe, so he's a long way behind the rest of the GT4 field, but lap 1 complete for our LMP3s. Eric Newman passes Jake Browning for third place, but Alec Bergstrom up in the lead by 0.8 of a second. A pretty good start for him as we check out what happened there to... Oh dear, that's Wyckoff. That's his second crash. I don't think he was aware that he lost his rear wing at that point.
No, it's so easy to lose the rear end in that carousel, isn't it? Especially with a little bit more fuel than you were used to. It was a good move, though. You mentioned down in towards turn 1 for Eric Newman to get himself and the 101 car through on Jake Browning, but that gap is starting to open up between Eric Newman and Dayton Lowe, I should say, already. It's a second and a half, and we're only about a lap and a half into this race, so Eric Newman got a little bit of work to do to make sure that they don't lose that connection with the top 2, as they could easily start to run away. A little bit of a wide moment as well further back, maybe for Calvin Myant, I think that was, as they run their way through. Could have been David Duino as well, but opening couple of minutes, they've dealt with it at the front, particularly for Alec Bergstrom in the LMP3s, but in the GT4 class, they're still all over each other, and the battle for P2 is nothing but settled at this stage.
Yeah, indeed. Jesse Mullins still pretty comfortable in the lead at the moment. It's a 4-way train for second place. Aaron Myers currently in that position. Carter James in the Aston Martin. He took great advantage of that little incident on the first lap. Now following the teammates of Reed Gibson and Sam Mayorga, driving 2 different cars, interestingly. Mayorga's decided to go for the Porsche Cayman, but Gibson is in the Mercedes. And look at that. Bump drafting, trying to give Mayorga the little bit of extra speed. The teammates trying to get further onto the podium here, but currently not being very successful. Aaron Myers is absolutely nailing it right now. Oh dear,
Ooh.
that's
Browning.
Oh,
yeah, he
no.
was fighting for P3 at the start of the last lap, and he's going to be right towards the back of the field as they make their way in towards turn 1. Just seems to be losing the rear end. Didn't look like there was any push from behind from that replay, and I mean, unless there was a big brake check or a check-up before from one of the drivers just in behind, that may have been all on his own. So unfortunate there for Jake Browning so early on in the race. But if you want something to go wrong, you want it to go wrong at the start so that you can build on that throughout the rest of the race. I also thought I saw before maybe a bit of an incident at the back of the GT4 battle.
Yeah.
Although I might have been seeing things coming through the boot as there's someone else going wide as they make their way towards the boot, of course, through the chute. But it's not really particularly been it's not been not clean, I think it's fair to say, Reese, but we've not been short of incidents so far, have we?
Yeah, I think Jared Bridwell's the driver we should focus on for a view of that GT4 incident, because he got tapped in the rear by Aiden Young coming through the toe section of the boot, and unfortunately didn't hold his brakes, and ultimately caused quite the pile-up in the GT4 midfield.
Yeah, and it's never really what you want to see, is it? So early on in the race and in the season to see an incident such as that. But whilst all this is going on, Alec Bergstrom, he's just going faster and faster and faster. 38-1 now for the race leader, as we're going to see what's happened to Dallin Vanshaar coming. Oh yeah, this is what we saw just a moment ago, and getting, oh my word, getting more than airborne as cars just go left and right to try and avoid him. He reverses off that racing line to ensure that there's no more contact, or he doesn't get in the way of anybody, but it was quite a hefty impact with the wall there.
Yeah, the LMP3s, they're pretty difficult to slow down, as Jean-Philippe in the 717 running off at the heel of the boot. Very easy to slip things around there. This is Derek Putnam's view of that incident I was talking about. Bridwell gets spun, the drivers just coming on through, and unfortunately some drivers weren't quite aware of the yellow flag there. That resulted in a lot of shuffling for position. Currently, looks like the likes of Will Jennings and Nathan Jennings are among the biggest movers in the GT4 field. Biggest mover in LMP3 is Brian Vorse, up 9 spots.
Good starts from a few of those guys in the order. It was interesting with that replay because I know we were looking at a battle further in front as they came in towards the heel, but you could just see the melee in behind, and it was a bit unclear whether that was just the racing with the 3-4 wide that we've seen so far, whether there was an incident going on. But regardless, Putnam milking his way through, making sure he doesn't come a cropper, and Christmas has come 6 months early for him exactly. Well, for me in the UK, it's the 25th of June now, not just the 24th. But as we're getting on to what is now the 4th or 5th lap of this race, lap 5, I should say, for Alec Bergstrom, lap 4 for the GT4s, we're starting to see Alec Bergstrom get ever closer to those GT4s. 1 minute 6 is the gap to the leader, and we're definitely going to be starting to see some lapping going on very shortly here.
Yeah, indeed we are. Our GT4 leaders only a corner or two away from Darren Rutherford. Oh my goodness, that's a big move there in the S's. Javier Rodriguez, I think, unfortunately running a little deep in the inner loop section. He was trying to defend from Nikhil Taylor and unfortunately just went straight on. That's created a bit of a crush behind him. Starker, Sorrentino, Javier Rodriguez still there, as Bartnikovsky now has to make way for Jake Browning at the rear of the pack. Browning, of course, on a big recovery drive at the moment. He started in 4th. He had that incident that we saw earlier, and he's going to get at least 1 position here, maybe 0. He's having trouble, actually.
Yeah, struggling to work his way through. Really did lunge the car to the inside of the toe, didn't he? Not really able to make it stick through the heel, but definitely going to have some work to do as he needs to recover some of the positions that he's lost. And he lost, 3 handfuls for of that. But we're going to look at Vincent Leroux here. Let's see if he can try and, defend his position at the moment, because he's a couple of seconds off the back of Calvin Myant up in front in the 27 car. But just in behind, he's got to be careful because the 42 of Peter Hudson really is looking fast, and it looks like he's going to get a slipstream through the S's and down towards the inner loop. Let's see as they make their way out onto the straight using that outside line, just trying to use a bit of a slingshot off of the corner. And Peter Hudson is going to have the outside line if he can't pull all the way in front. But I think the position is conceded just about by Vincent LaRue as they work their way in towards the inner loop. And that's P6 for Huston now.
Yeah. Smart move there. Still very early on in the race, and if you've got a faster driver wanting to make moves, you might as well let them go, potentially use them as the hole to punch through the traffic. Hopefully not literally. Speaking of traffic, well, they're definitely in it now. Alec Bergstrom is having a very tough time working his way through the GT4 pack at the head of the LMP3 field, but the lead for Jesse Mullins in the GT4 class is starting to come down here. Aaron Myers now within 5/10 of the race lead. A 10th taken out of Jesse Mullins on the last lap. This is a great battle that's starting to form.
Yeah, and the top 7 in the GT4 class split by only about, give or take, 4 seconds here. So, being 1 minute 24 off of the lead, Alec Bergstrom, he's going to be on these guys by the end of this, well, by the middle of this lap, really. So this is going to be really, really interesting to see how the overall leader and the leader in the LMP3 category can work his way through these GT4s who are racing, running so closely together. Reed Gibson is trying to run ahead of Sam Mayorga if he can help it, but he's not going to make that move in towards the inner loop, into the chicane. And it's really smart racing, isn't it? You don't really want to be making a lunge. It's really impossible to make a lunge anywhere around this Watkins Glen circuit, and it can be a little bit irresponsible if you've not really got the run. So nice to see him sitting and waiting, but looks like he's got a lot more speed at this stage than Sam Mayorga. But whilst these guys are fighting, they're going to have to be careful because Alec Bergstrom, he's going to be arriving on the scene in no time at all.
Yeah, you see him just pop into the frame at the top there. Watkins Glen, you're right. It's not the kind of circuit where you should go for lunges. Even at turn 1, which is one of the most obvious overtaking opportunities, mid-corner speed is vital at this circuit. Speaking of Bergstrom, he's actually losing ground in the lead of the race to Dayton Lowe, who's taken advantage of the runs through the traffic. The battle for 13th in LMP3 going off as well. Nikhil Taylor currently holding on to that coveted lucky 13th position, but you can see just how much the LMP3s are struggling to find their way past the GT4s at this stage. This is the lead that I was talking about. Bergstrom compromised coming into the final turn. They are diving in and out there compared to the GT4 class. That would have been scary.
Yeah, it would have been scary, but Dayton Lowe trying to pick up a bit of a slipstream as they make their way towards turn 1. Bergstrom to the inside of 1 GT3. I thought he maybe was going to send it on a second, but he should get the exit quite easily, and there you go. Going to make sure he overtakes the final GT4 that he's going to have to deal with in a little while now. But his problem is not with the GT4s, it's with Dayton Lowe. The 708 car is right on his tail, using that slipstream all the way towards the chicane that we will go. Bergstrom's made sure to claim the inside line, but will he be able to really utilise it as Dayton Lowe's going to go around the outside? No, he won't. He'll back off again, as we've mentioned. Difficult to go around the outside. Somewhat irresponsible to try and make a lunge, make a really quite dangerous move. And Dayton Lowe, knowing that he's going to have another chance, he's going to sit in wait now. But later on in this race, as this race develops, especially when we're going to be thinking about the pit stops in the coming minutes, in the coming laps, he's going to sit there, wait, and see what he can do in the coming minutes.
Yeah, well, this is smart here from Dayton Lowe. He had a go at it as we check out a replay for James O'Brien, who's, oh dear, gone for a spin, and that's involved one of the geodesic LMP3s. Careful on the re-entry. Yeah, for day. Whoa! Oh God, Matthew Falk in the LMP3 class. Massive incident there at the inner loop. A huge crash, and that is a guaranteed retirement. Very unfortunate for him. Just getting crossed up over the curbs there, and you need to use those curbs if you want to be fast around this circuit. That's a shame for Matthew, but I wanted to say it's smart from Dayton Lowe. He didn't go for the move. He backed out of it and made sure that he stayed in the slipstream. He's done the hard work of catching up to Alec Bergstrom, and now he can sit behind, save a bit of fuel, and that might shorten his pit stop, which could give him the lead.
Yeah, all of these little elements can give you an advantage, can't they? Over the course of a race, 35 minutes, it's not the shortest of races, but of course, it's by no means an endurance race. So these drivers, they're kind of on sprint mode, but they also have to be conserving with that pit stop, which kind of adds the element of, yes, you've got to, you've only got, what we're saying, 20 laps, give or take, in the race. But you've also got to be thinking in the back of your mind, well, I've got to be spending 10 of those, maybe saving, maybe more, etc., etc. So lots of things in the drivers' minds that they're going to have to be considering as we make our way through this race. Jesse Mullins getting overtaken by ever more LMP3s, and it can't be comfortable being a GT4, just feeling like a sitting duck, 15 seconds slower than the cars just flying around your outside as you make your way through what you would call the slower parts of the lap. But I also wanted to say thanks to Ramiro for that slow-mo that we saw before of the crash on the outside of the chicane, because that really was quite something to witness. Regardless, though, there's cars all over the road here, Reese. Pit stops are fast approaching. You mentioned how the pit window kind of opens up to 15 minutes. Well, we're 15 minutes in now. The next 3-4 laps is really where we're going to see all the action.
Yeah, we've already seen one scheduled pit stop from what I can see for the LMP3 class. Fennicini has made his way into the pit lane. 13.2 second stop there, as there's quite a big crush coming out of the boot section. This is the battle for third place in GT4. And those teammates of Reed, Gibson and Sam Mayorga are now split by Aiden Young, who finally sees the opportunity as flying through there is Jake Browning, who's recovered now back up to 16th place. He's still struggling to find his way through in the LMP3s, but man, what I'm seeing is it's very difficult to commit to a pass for Aiden Young. He's got a lot to deal with, not just passing the cars in front of him, but being passed by the prototypes.
And this is really why we love multi-class racing, as we see an incident here for Adam Ostrich as he's gone for a spin. I think there was contact there with someone on the inside of the corner. But this is why we love multi-class. Oh, there's another one. That's a massive impact with Derek Putnam going off in his McLaren, looking a little bit worse for wear. You wouldn't really want to be taking that out on the roads, but Travis Chapman as well involved in that. With a lovely sponsored car there in the 35. But I was just saying before those replays came up how good multi-class racing is. We've got 53 cars here, pretty much evenly split, 24 to 29, and there are just cars all over the road. There's battles going on. We saw basically through either P3 and the GT4s, as there were P14 and the LMP3s coming through. It really does just show why we love this kind of racing, because it is just manic, it's chaotic, but it also produces some fantastic side-by-side action.
Yeah, fantastic indeed. Pit stops have come in as well for Adam Ostrich, Travis Chapman as well. Looks like they've made their way into the lane either for a crash or for a scheduled pit stop. The retirements list is steadily growing as we keep an eye on Newman and Duino for third place in LMP3. We have, unfortunately, lost 12 cars so far, 5 of those being LMP3s. It's been a bit of a race of attrition so far, but hopefully with that first run through traffic, they've worked themselves out and they can be a bit cleaner next time through. Meanwhile, clear track ahead for the battle for P6. Peter Huston starting to gap LaRue and Lovkov, who's actually caught up very nicely to these two.
Yeah, he has. I mean, it's so easy or difficult, really, to negotiate your way through traffic and to really open and close those gaps between the drivers. It's where we're going to see most of the differential. There's a GT4 going into the wall in the background, spinning into the wall. Not too sure who that was exactly, but clearly that is likely to be the end of their race, turning into a bit of a Monaco 96, isn't it, here for the opening race here in PRL for the season. This battle, though, in the GT4s, it's really the one that we've been looking at quite a bit. Sam Mayorga, Reed Gibson, the teammates, nearly side by side as they make their way through the carousel. But they've got to be careful, because Aiden Young and Tyler Sage Anderson are pretty much in the boots of these cars, if these cars had boots, and it's forcing Gibson to go for the move on his own teammate for P3.
Not without a little bit of biffo as well. Banging door panels. Mayorga now moves to defending from Aiden Young, and right in the midst of it, is the Porsche Cayman of Tyler Anderson. Gets a better exit round the outside. That's one of those corners where if you're on the outside, it's not the end of the world. You can straighten up the car earlier and get a better exit, but Aiden Young's not willing to give this one up. Young, dominant in the GT4 category in previous seasons, having a little bit more trouble here with a lot more drivers now to contend with, but Anderson is going to complete the move on him. Coming out of the boot, they've got a bit of traffic ahead though. The damaged BMW of Travis Chapman, who we saw spinning earlier. I'm assuming he's going to just let them go here on the front straight.
Yeah, you'd think so. I think he did the same to the car in front not too long ago either. Hit Eric Newman though on the back of David Duino. Oh, got to be careful of that GT3 on the outside. That was the 33 car. Who was, I would say dawdling, but that's just the pace of these GT4 cars. It was James O'Brien on the outside, but Eric Newman doing his best to try and pass David Duino here. Do not believe that these two have been into the pit lane just yet, so they are going longer on this opening stint, maybe saving a little bit more fuel to get that shorter stop in the pit lane, and they're doing a very good job of it at the moment. 10 seconds ahead of Peter Huston and Vincent LaRue, but I'm sure we'll see them onto pit lane relatively soon. Not this time around though, as actually no, we will see Eric Newman this time around. He was duping me. He wasn't taking the natural inside line for that pit lane, but he went in anyway.
Yeah, and Watkins Glen's one of those circuits where pit entry can actually be quite dangerous because you have to slow down right at the apex of the final corner in order to get into the pit lane, and there's a lot of potential for miscommunication there. So Newman, Huston, LaRue, and Zanadakis all in the pit lane in the LMP3 class. Roy Brown completing a pit stop in GT4. Derber, McGeehan, Dufresne, Lewis, and Rutherford all in the pits now in GT4 as well, completing their pit stops. Our top runners in GT4 have remained out, and that's a trend that I've noticed in previous races in this series. The leaders in the GT4 class tend to push the fuel tank a long way in the first stint.
Something else to note as well though, look at P5 and 6 in the LMP3 category. Dayton Lowe is ahead of Alec Bergstrom, and that pit stop time might be why. 8/10 quicker, stopped in his box. And Dayton Lowe, I mean, when I last saw, he was only about 5/10. Yeah, he's only about 8/10 in front of Alec Bergstrom. Those two really the net race leaders, you'd have to say. And Dayton Lowe, he maybe didn't have to make the move on track. He just did it in the pit lane.
Yeah, that's what I was alluding to before with fuel saving in the slipstream. You know, any kind of reduction in pit stop time you can take is going to pay dividends for you. It is the number 5 of David Duino, though, who leads. We're still waiting on pit stops for 5 of our LMP3 runners, the top 4 plus Christian Garatom, who's currently running in 7th spot. Duino, of course, one of the drivers on the Zoom feed for tonight. Geodesic Racing is a team that's been around for quite some time. They are full of fast drivers, and they are staking their claim for a podium here. Sorrentino has made his stop. Meanwhile, remember, Sorrentino started from the very back of the LMP3 grid. I'll be interested to see where he comes out here. Currently waiting on getting passed by the likes of Huston, Mayant, LaRue, and Zanadakis.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I was just going to say about the pit lane, it just looks like an emergency department, doesn't it? There were 2 cars there with no front end to speak of, with so many incidents that have been ongoing. But as we look in the battle for the GT4 category, yeah, exactly. It's like outpatients here in the UK, or A&E. For those of you who are staying up. But in this GT4 battle, I think it's fair to say that the lead battle has been incredible so far. Reed Gibson has worked his way up into P2. They're going to be overtaken now by one of the the LMP3 cars, not the GT3s. And that's for later on, I should say. Here's Oleg Glovkov. That's the second time we've seen that, although not quite as spectacular as the first one.
No, the front bumper coming off in one piece there for Lovkov. That's a shame. I saw that happen earlier, and my heart broke for him. He'd caught right up to the battle and was sticking in it, but unfortunately, the curbs at the bus stop, the inner loop, they are very brutal in the firm suspensioned LMP3 cars, because like it's one of those sequences where you have to use all of the curb in order to get the fastest time, but if you hit them wrong, then it's race over.
Yeah, it's so difficult this circuit. Such high speed,
yeah, see?
as you can see. Javier Rodriguez, another driver. I thought he was going very slow there, and then I realized, no, that's just the slow motion that Ramiro is putting on. It's great to see these in slow motion as well, though, because they really do add kind of the drama of the moment to the replay. But we will continue on. 11 minutes to go in the fading light here at Watkins Glen. Lovely to be racing in the evening, but we're still seeing some very close battles on track. We're looking at Calvin Mines at the moment, the 27 car, on the back of Peter Huston, who I think it's fair to say has done a very good job to work his way up to P4, but looking at his gap up towards Eric Newman, 10 seconds and nearly, well, 11 seconds even, up towards a podium position, looks a little bit too much to ask for him, but is it going to be too much to ask for Calvin Mines? Because he's going to go around the outside here as they make their way in towards the into the chicane. Is he going to back out of this one? You'd expect him to, and yes, he does just about, but not as much as we've seen some of the others do.
Yeah, well, he'll live to fight another day. That's the main thing, really. It's about survival in a field as big as this in the first round of a new season. Speaking of survival, how about Doug Sorrentino? He's completed his pit stop 13 seconds, which is longer than most, but he's managed to make his way up into 7th place in the LMP3 category. He has worked the traffic perfectly. He's driven a safe race, and it's paid off for him.
And that's exactly what you need to be doing in these LMP3s when there's so much traffic, there's so much carnage around you. It's exemplary what he's been doing, Doug Sorrentino, to work his way up to P7. Let's see how much further up the order he can get, because he's really not a million miles away. Maybe even trying to get up into the top 4. We'll look at Jesse Mullins, the leader in the GT4 battle, as Reed Gibson is just behind him, sitting on the rear bumper nearly with that Mercedes. It's so much wider, just bigger, isn't it, that Mercedes? Must look a little bit intimidating for the Porsches in the wing mirrors, but, you know, Jesse Mullins in the smaller vehicle, you know, using it to great effect at the moment. 5/10 of a lead, but really everyone else further back isn't far away either. If these two start fighting, you can absolutely see the likes of Aaron Myers, Carter James, Tyler Sage Anderson getting themselves involved in the battle for the win.
Yeah, you definitely think that. It's a nice train here in the GT4 fight. The Aston Martin of Carter James there is continuing to keep himself in the battle here as the LMP3s work their way around the outside of the carousel. So much more downforce in those LMP3 cars, and the outside line is one you'll often see them taking at Watkins Glen in traffic. Speaking of traffic, this is another element, I think, of the Mercedes. Oh dear, Ian Starker at turn 1. Big problem there in the LMP3 class. A lot of drivers, I think, getting used to these cars for the first time in a bit. Sorrentino, no! Oh, he was doing so well. Unfortunately, messing up there, trying to make his way past a GT4 in the inner loop. And, well, he's still in the top 10. Still a great drive from the back of the field, but he would have been hoping for better than that.
I was going to say, that could have been a lot worse than instant, I think it's fair to say. Avoided all the barriers, really avoided major contact.
Oh, no.
His car looks relatively intact, unless something wrong.
Yeah, something's wrong in a different part of the field. We saw Reed Gibson getting massive runs on Jesse Mullins for the lead of GT4, but it looks like he's had a technical issue and he's out of the race.
It's the biggest concern well, not necessarily concern, but risk that we have when racing online, isn't it? That technology can fail us. It works so well, it provides us with such great racing, but then it just stops working, and it is just so horrible. It's not stopped working for Calvin Maint, though. He's finally through on Peter Huston. That move's been coming for the last few laps, I think it's fair to say. He's been looking to make the move, backing out, being smart about it, but he's now in P4 looking to scarper away and consolidate his position. Never going to get up to Eric Newman unless there's a big moment for that, for the 101 driver up in P3. But for Peter Huston, Vincent LaRue is definitely the driver to focus on, because he is going to be right behind and seems to be the fastest driver for P5 at this stage.
Yeah, he does seem to be very quick at the moment. This is a fantastic little battle here, and it's going to continue all the way to the end of the race. Huston been putting on some great drives for the time being. We'll check further forward, though. Dayton Lowe round the outside at turn 1. Alec Bergstrom is going to catch back up to him, and this is Bergstrom's chance to get the LMP3 lead back. Dayton Lowe offline here, but you never know. This could be a tactical lift here from Lowe. There's still 6 minutes of the race to go. Does he let Bergstrom through and have a chance at slipstreaming back past him to the end? No, he's going to defend coming into the inner loop. Nicely done. Bergstrom's going to have to wait for another chance. We've also, unfortunately, lost Tyler Anderson, who was battling for the top 5 in GT4, came together with Carter James at turn 1. Both cars got into the wall. A big shame for those two. This is where it happened, on T1 exit, and heavy damage indeed. Ah, man, round 1. I mean, it's like I said before, it's all about survival, and unfortunately, plenty of our front runners aren't surviving.
Yeah, that's fair to say. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And really, they're the front runners because they're surviving, and because of how they're dealing with the drivers around them not surviving, and how they're picking their way through. We saw a couple of shots earlier, the replays, where there were drivers just picking their way through the the carnage that was unfolding in front of them. Dayton Lowe at the start of the last lap through turn 1, you could see he went very wide on the outside line and then tried to snap back to the racing line, clearly losing some speed doing so, and that was why Alec Bergstrom had such a run on him. He seems confident enough in his pace to hold the position for the time being, getting through on the number 34 car of Joshua Lewis as they work their way through now up towards the inner loop once again. But Dayton Lowe much more comfortable, isn't he, this time around? Not any worries behind in the form of Alec Bergstrom. Even if he closes to within a quarter of a second, he's not able to make a lunge. It's practically impossible, as we've touched upon, to really make a send at this track. You have to really get the run to have any kind of go, and I think Dayton Lowe thinks for the time being he can protect that lead, without having to worry about a send.
Yeah, well, I think Bergstrom is gearing something up here. He's certainly still very quick, and right behind Dayton Lowe coming into the toe of the boot section. I think in the next couple of minutes we might see that lunge from Bergstrom. Whether or not it's successful remains to be seen. If you're a fan of Jake Browning, I'm very sorry to tell you that Browning is out of the race after his unfortunate goings-on in the early stages, and his recovery drive has come to an end. Will Jennings in car 420 spun ahead of him in the toe of the boot, and well, it was the T-bone. Jake Browning just went straight into him, and his car was destroyed.
And I think we are nearing now half the field where they are no longer in this race. I believe we are looking at, I mean, there may be some cars going around a few laps down, but there are only, I say only, 36 cars within 5 laps of the lead at this stage. It just shows how chaotic and how much of attrition there has been in this race. Here comes Alec Bergstrom, though, towards the chicane. He's going to take the outside line. Surely not going to be able to send it around the outside there. Let's see if he backs out once again. No, he's going to... Oh, no, I thought he was going for it. He's getting him behind. Moment. Oh, my word. That's the rear end off. And that's Dayton Lowe, realistically, well, yes, completely out of this race. He's handed to Alex Bergstrom. A mistake in towards the inner loop. And this is how it happened.
What did I say about the curbs, man? He was just too aggressive over the second curb, and that unsettled the car just enough for him to lose control. And the rear going into the wall first, that would have absolutely destroyed the drivetrain, not to mention the rear suspension. And that's just heartbreaking for Dayton Lowe. He was driving such a good race. Could have had a really awesome race for victory here, but looks like Alec Bergstrom might just run away with this now.
I think there's something to be said there in that incident with Alec Bergstrom. He really didn't back out maybe as early as some might say. I mean, I did mention how I thought he was going for it around the outside. He really did. He left it late to back out of the move. Is there possibly an element to the fact that Dayton Lowe possibly, saw that, thought he had to go a little bit harder into the corner, which forced him onto that curb to go a little bit wide? Because it wasn't the natural line for him to take, you'd say.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. It's all part of the psychological game of racing as well. If late stages of the race, you try to push your opponent a little further into the corners and pressure them into a mistake. I think Bergstrom, he'll obviously be unhappy that there isn't a huge battle for the lead. These drivers like to earn their victories, but at the same time, he did put him into that position, and it was all down to Dayton Lowe as to whether or not he'd be able to keep that up. James O'Brien, meanwhile, it seems like there's been a bit of a problem for him coming into the end of the lap. Oh, okay, just coming together with the LMP3s there. Fortunately, gravel runoff there to recover. But yeah, even this late on in the race, we've got so much going on.
I do believe this will be the last lap, because Alec Bergstrom is coming in towards the final few corners, but only has less than 15 seconds on the clock now. I mean, he led early on, didn't he? He took pole position. He led the race quite nicely in the opening stint. Kind of got duped a little bit, I think it's fair to say, with the strategy that was played. But in the end, forcing his rivals into a mistake, is going to lead Alec Bergstrom to taking the opener here in the LMP3 GT3 challenge here in PRL. And Alec Bergstrom is the winner with the fastest lap as well. That's always a nice thing to write home about. Win and getting the fastest lap at the end with a 37 flat, really showing what he is made of. Jesse Mullins crossed the line just in front of Alec Bergstrom. So, Reese, we have got nearly a full lap to savour in what should be a win for the number 9 car.
Yeah, indeed. Mullins at the moment enjoys quite the lead over Aaron Myers, and I mean, there's still potential for that to change here over this final lap. But yeah, Mullins, he just stayed in the lead the whole way through, and all of the drama happened behind him. That's the best case scenario if you're a race leader. Still got some traffic to work his way through. That's Derek Putnam in one of the few McLarens in this field, but he's going to let the GT4 leader go very nicely. Yeah, nice calm drive to the finish for Mullins. At least we hope so. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, there's only a couple more corners for him to negotiate, and there's only really one car that can beat him, because Aiden Young, you can see on the timing tower there, 3 laps down to the leader, Alec Bergstrom, which means that at worst Jesse Mullins is going to finish in 2nd place. So regardless, a very good result for him tonight. There are only 3 more corners to go for him in the Porsche. He was under a little bit of pressure, when they came out of the pit lane from a couple of the drivers in behind. And there were a lot of them, weren't there? The top 7 were split by only about 5 seconds. But Jesse Mullins, he's dealt with it fantastically well. He's not let any of the LMP3s phase him, and he's going to come through the final corner, and he will win in the GT4 class here for the opening round of the season. Aaron Myers will come across the line P2, flashing his lights in celebration, showing that he enjoyed his race. Aiden Young was 3rd, Sam Mayorga, Francis Castillo, Romero in the top 5 as well. But I think it's fair to say a fantastic race to kick off the season, albeit with quite a lot of carnage in the mid-pack. Barney waving the flag as everybody crosses the line. But here are the results. A big win in the end for the 66 of Alec Bergstrom, who won by 14 seconds after 21 laps of the Watkins Glen circuit. The 101 of Eric Newman picks up P2 after the incident that we saw with only a couple of laps to go for, you know, Dayton Lowe, who looks nailed on for at least a top 2 finish. Calvin Myant, though, rounds out the podium, and he'll be pleased to see the incident that happened in front. Peter Huston and Vincent LaRue were in the top 5 as they were only 30 seconds off the lead, with Brian Vors, Nikos Sanedakis, Doug Sorrentino after his incident, Nikiel Taylor and Christian Garaton rounding out the top 10 in the opening round of the season. David Duino, Javier Rodriguez and Ian Starker were the only other drivers to finish on the lead lap in a 24-strong field. That means 11 drivers came into at least quite a bit of trouble. Dayton Lowe was one of them. Of course, we saw his big crash coming through the chicane, and he finished ahead in the end on the classified results of Fen Achini. Dallin Van Shar is 16th, Jake Browning and Ryan O'Connor 17th and 18th. Oleg Lovkov, after his big crash, is 19th, with Ray Bartnikovsky in the top 20. Only a few more then in the LMP3s, and they were Matthew Folk, Kevin Simpson, Gerald Yatadko and Zach Herbert, none of whom saw the flag. Zach Herbert, of course, he had that heart rate monitor on, didn't he? But I'm sure his heart was going through the roof if he crashed. Regardless, though, in the GT4 category, Jesse Mullins was the winner, but not by too much. Aaron Myers, 3.4 seconds. The rest showing a lap behind really doesn't tell you the story. Aiden Young, Sam Mayorga, they were right on the back. Just got lapped at the end, though, by Bergstrom, not allowing them to fight for that win. Francis Castillo Romero rounded out the top 5 with Roy Brown in P6. Joshua Lewis and Nathan Jennings in the top 8 with Robert McGeehan and Darren Rutherford in the top 10. We look further back. Declan Derber, Pascal DeFresny and Joe Keats in the top 13. Adam Ostrich and James O'Brien round out the top 15. Travis Chapman, Christopher Rosario and Will Jennings are in the top 18, with Carter James and Tyler Sage Anderson. He came into some trouble in the top 20, just about. Then the final drivers in this category, of course, 29. None of these guys, I don't believe, saw the flag. Reed Gibson, Derek Putnam, Caelan Tobin, Sean Mulholland, Jeff Kaufhold, Jared Bridwell, Jean-Philippe Tremblay, Rog Oulet, and Matthew Wyckoff. I can only apologise to Rod if I continually butcher his name. I will ask him for sure what exactly how to pronounce it. But Reese, I think it's fair to say a fantastic season at opener, and lots of battling that commenced in that race. It's going to be great to talk to our winners.
Yeah, indeed it is. And we have Alec Bergstrom, our LMP3 winner, ready to go.
How's it going, guys?
Evening, Alec. I mean, congratulations on that race win. Difficult, I think it's fair to say, throughout most of that race. You didn't lead by very much, but, I mean, talk us through what happened on the final couple of laps going in towards that inner loop. I mean, of course, there was no contact, but it just seemed that, you know, the car got away a bit from Dayton, and you just inherited the lead there.
Yeah, you know, P3 is really tough over those curbs and the bus stops. So if you get that wrong, you know, you're straight into the wall. I was just trying to put pressure on Dayton going into the bus stop up there. You know, I wasn't trying to put that kind of pressure on him, but I was trying to get a run coming out of the bus stop, hoping he would go wide, maybe get an off track or slow down there, and then I'd be able to go around. But it's unfortunate to win a race like that. Would have liked the fight to come down to the end.
And I mean, overall, though, throughout the race, you had great pace. Pole position as well to kick off the season. It must give that confidence. Of course, it's only 9 rounds of the season, so you've got to get the points on the board early. Win, pole, I mean, fastest lap as well on that last lap. It all looked like it worked well for you this evening. Does it give you that confidence going into the next few rounds?
Absolutely. Definitely big confidence to win the first round. This is the first time I've ever won a first round of PRL, so that's a first for me. But yeah, no, I think I can take the fight to these guys. Dayton's really fast. Eric's in here, and I know he's really fast as well. So it's going to be a tough season, but I'm definitely up for the challenge.
And going to be great to see you all the way through the season. And congratulations then on that win, especially if that's a bit of a landmark for you yourself. But, you know, great to see you doing so well in the race. And hopefully we'll speak to you again later on in the season.
Hopefully. Thank you, guys.
That was Alec Bergstrom, winner overall, and of course in the LMP3 category. And But Reese, overall, fantastic race for him in the LMP3s. We had a good battle in GT4. I think we've got Aiden Young in the broadcast booth. I'll chuck it over to you if you've got anything to ask Aiden.
Yeah, Aiden, it was a very interesting race from your perspective. Particularly early on, you were struggling to find your way through. Looked like you had to drive pretty hard in those opening stages.
Yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't the best race for me, but, you win some, you lose some. You're never always just going to go on a winning streak where you're going to win every race. And losing is where you learn, so I can learn from today and then take that into next week. Obviously, next week's going to be wet, so I'll have to do a bit of practice for that, but I can still learn from it, learn from my mistakes today, and go to next week with head held high, and then see what I can do and see if I can't do better.
Yeah, I think, the characteristics of this race, first of a new season, this is usually when we see the most sign-ups for a race. Maybe that has played a part in that result today. Just there were a lot more drivers to deal with at the front of the field, but it turned out it was a bit difficult to manage, but you should still be happy with a podium. I think, getting your results started off with a third place is the best way to come out of this round. Could have been worse.
Yeah, I'm still happy with the podium, but obviously, like almost everybody wants to win. I still want to win because I know I have the pace to do so. But after that, like the last incident, I just told myself, okay, calm down. Sure, it's maybe a bit less time in the race because it's not like a IMSA race. It's 35 minutes, so I still knew 35 minutes was enough time for me to collect myself and just try and go back through the field. I just calmed myself down, and then some of the moves weren't the cleanest, but some of that is myself to blame. And then also it is first race, so everyone's gunning for it, I'm gunning for it, and so that's just one of those first race things.
It is indeed. Well, congratulations once again on the podium, Aiden, and hopefully we get a chance to chat to you next round.
Yep, see you next week.
Aiden Young there, magnificent drive to P3 in the LMP3 class, and that's concluding the first part of the night here, Dara. We are moving on to GTP and GT3. We're going across the pond to Portugal, racing at the Autódromo Internacional do Algarve, which is one of my favorite newer racetracks. This place has been around since 2008, and of course hosted Formula One on a couple of occasions a couple of years ago. This should be an excellent opening round.
It should be. Portimao always produces some cracking racing. Of course, it was on VCO Infinity not too long ago. We saw multiple categories go around here. But like you said, just as you thought we've done with the LMP3 and the GT4s, we've also got the GTPs and the GT3s to race as well. So, more than looking forward to this. And again, the schedule looking absolutely fantastic. Algarve the opening week, and we stay in Europe for the Nürburgring before moving across the pond to America, Daytona, Motorsport again. But I'm looking down towards the end of that calendar, and I'm looking at finishing the season on the Circuit de la Sarthe, and I'm thinking that could be a fantastic season finale if we get a championship all the way through the season.
Yeah, indeed. Man, what a fantastic schedule this is. Concluding, of course, at the Circuit de la Sarthe, which is the spiritual home of a lot of these cars. We're already in the qualifying session, 8 minutes remaining, and once again, this is a pretty good turnout for the first round. We have less cars than we saw in LMP3 and GT4, but still a solid field here. 40 cars spread across our two classes, 26 of them being GT3s.
Yes, there's still lots of action I think we're going to be in store for in this race. Of course, GTP's the fastest of the, I believe the fastest of all the machines that we go racing in PRL, of course, on a, I think it's fair to say, on a road course, because the NASCARs surely go fast in a straight line, but I don't think they're going to get themselves around Portimao in a quicker time. But it's great to see these cars in the mixed class racing once again. You know, with the faster cars, with the more you know, front end heavy, you could say, cars. I say that as we see a slide from one of the GTPs, but it's just great to see, isn't it? With the calendar that we have, Algarve particularly as a season opener, it's one of those tracks where, you know, overtaking is very much possible, but through most of the lap, especially with the you know with the difference in classes that we've got, going to be important for these guys to be committed in the moves they're making, because some half-hearted moves could end the same way that we saw at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, exactly. This is obviously a more modern FIA Grade 1 circuit compared to Watkins Glen, so there's a lot more space for recovery if there is an off, but you still want to be very careful with your maneuvers, particularly down here at turn 3. It's easy to make up time through turns 1 and 2, but you need to be careful to get up the inside and get the move done assertively. There's good potential for dives as well at the very tight hairpins on this lap, but I think particularly across the top half of the circuit where you really go up and down the hills, there's a couple of blind corners in this section. Actually, the exit of this section here, you turn out of this right-hand hairpin and you are looking at the sky as you make your way over the crest. Got to be careful not to be too distracted by a cloud, because you might see a couple of GT3s side by side ahead of you.
Yeah, and even if you don't see them ahead of you, they're just going to appear when you crest that hill, aren't they? So it's going to be really, really interesting to see. One thing I was going to talk about briefly, we have a moment as we're in qualifying now, that I was going to talk about as we get in towards Season 3, across the season in general, Reese, is that we're into the summer months, aren't we? And I know here in the UK, we're going through what we would call a heat wave, despite the fact that it's only going to get up to about 83, 84 Fahrenheit, 28 Celsius. Is there an element, as there is, I know, lots of heat, particularly in the south of America, is there an element to the heat kind of maybe coming into these drivers? Of course, they will be cooling themselves as much as they can, but we've seen a lot of incidents in the opening race this evening. Is it maybe a theme that we get in these summer months?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe. You know, with a hot track here in Portugal, it will be difficult to keep the speed up through the corners. Generally, what you find is there's a bit more understeer in warmer conditions, and the car will snap a little bit easier. So I do think that increases the likelihood of incidents. But I think a lot of these drivers, especially up at the top of the field, are smart enough to realize that they need to manage their pace a little more in these conditions and not push as hard.
Yeah, I mean, of course, but as well as the fact that just where they are sitting on their sim rigs, I mean, if they, you know, if they start to get warm,
yeah, you're talking in the real world.
Yeah,
Meat space.
So you know. Exactly. I know we've seen some onboards, or some cameras that drivers have provided us before here on RaceSpotTV, where, you know, it's clear to see that the drivers are putting absolutely every fan, every cooling device they can onto them, because when you get hot and you're sitting down for a long time, you can start to lose a little bit of concentration. I mean, you get it when you're, you know, driving a real life car. Does the same happen in the sim racing world? Could we see a few more instances because of it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're just getting into winter down here in Australia, so you know, it's not as much of a problem for me as it was. Look at those camera angles for Bradley Holly. That's really cool. What I've found when I'm racing in my rig, I tend to sweat quite a bit, and I don't really have the space to put up too many fans. So what I find is, especially towards the end of a long race where I've been battling hard, I've got sweat dripping into my eyes. It's getting onto my glasses. It's blurring my vision. It's distracting me, the sensation of the sweat trickling down my forehead. And I think a lot of the drivers will be suffering from that same debilitation. It could be distracting, could provide a small moment of distraction in a very crucial battle, a very crucial part of the circuit. And I suppose you would see greater likelihood for incidents as a result of that.
Yeah, I just a thought I had as I sat here. Of course, I've not got my fan on because you'd be able to hear it on my microphone if I did. But I'm starting to get a little bit warmer, and it is, 2:30 in the morning here in the UK. I should not be warm. Meanwhile, qualifying, of course, is going on. Times are flying in. Pat Pelchat leading the way, 30.2 in the GTPs. He's got quite a hefty margin, 6/10 of a gap to Jack Hedgecock's in behind him. Even in the GT3 category, we're seeing Brett Gardner a couple of tenths ahead of Corey Kirkone, but then there's another 4/10 gap back to Ted Levendick. So there are some gaps forming here across the field. They aren't too close together, which is maybe a little bit surprising to me, because I would have thought this track isn't the longest. Maybe we'd see some closer times. We still might have them, but if you're going to be starting a lap time, you're going to have to be starting it now.
Yeah, of course. A lap around Algarve, about 1 minute and 30 seconds. In the GTPs, 1 minute and 44 seconds or thereabouts in the GT3s. So yeah, start your final laps now. It's a single race, so the session will still be running after the timer hits 0. You'll be able to complete your lap. At least I assume that's the case. But if you're not out at this point, then you are in trouble of not improving. You only get 4 laps as well in this qualifying session, so you need to nail every single corner here, and be careful of the off tracks. This circuit is, of course, a very modern track with flat curbs and big runoff areas, and that means it's very easy to run beyond those track limits.
As we are seeing a couple of drivers do there. Yeah, it's not quite an Imola, is it? Where you are scared to go off the road. You're really pushing the boundaries of the white lines and of the racetrack as you work your way all the way around this Portimao circuit in the south of Portugal. Mark Kalin is going to be coming up to the line in his Ford. P16 is the last time. I don't think he's making any improvement, and he will stay where he is. And as the timer ticks further and further down, there's less and less chance for any of these guys to improve on their times. And as the timer hits 0, I do not believe there is anybody left on the track who is really going to be setting any kind of blistering pace in this qualifying session, which means pretty much that the session results are final. And here is the starting grid for the GTPs. It's Pat Pelchat on pole position by over half a second. A great time from him ahead of Jack Hedgecock, who lines up alongside him on the front row. The second row, Rodrigo Abrao and Graham Wildmon, who is in P4. Bradley Holly, the man who has a T-cam on his head, which is absolutely stunning, and I really hope we get to see more of that later on, is in P5. Alex de Almeida will start from 6th, but he's over a second off of the pole time. Jeremy Carters and Nathan Ray on the 4th row, with Cody Cosgrove and Matthew Denise in the top 10. Nicholas Schwartz and Ray Kingsbury are in the top 12, as we have 2 more cars in this GTP field. Darian Roy and Carsten Quint in 13th and 14th, but still quite a big gap between some of those cars. In the GT3s, it's Brett Gardner, 43.9, who sets the pace ahead of Corey Kirkone in P2. Ted Levendick is third, with Jake Cummings in 4th, William Fenson and Shreyas Venkataraju in P6. The Michigan driver just about 9/10 off of the pace. Eric Fenson and Daniel Trinker in the top 8, with Sean Murphy and Ryan Reeves rounding out the top 10 on the 5th row of the grid. Chris Stewart and Gabriel Alvarado are in the top 12 in that green looking machine, with Dean Giroux and Richard Saavedra in the top 14. Sean Stecker and Mark Kalin are in the top 16, but again, the times really do drop off 2 seconds off the pace. Evan Henneman and Bowie Suen in the top 18 for the 21 car, with Corey Fenson and Doug Evans in the top 20. Clearly quite a few more GT3s than there are GTPs, that's the word, with Travis Pruitt and Chris Treiber in the top 22. Thomas Yankee and Kerry Corcoran round out the 24 drivers. Kerry Corcoran, I don't believe that was a representative lap time, 7 seconds off. 2 more drivers, Jake Mackey, Brendan Chatley, they'll round out the grid of 40 drivers, 14 in the GTPs and 26 in the in the GT3s. I'm getting my My class is mixed up, Reese. It's all the difference between IMSA. It's IMSA and WEC. I can never remember who's in which with all the acronyms. But we've got GTPs and GT3s in this race. Ambient temperature 75 degrees, pretty much what it was earlier. A little bit earlier in the day. Track temperature though quite high, 108 degrees. That is going to be a hot tarmac for the drivers to be going on.
Yeah, not as hot as it was in qualifying, though, and the drivers will be very grateful for that. We'll see what the drivers can do here at the start. Balance of performance looking pretty good in the GTP class. It seems like it's the Acura and Cadillac show, though, for the most part. Not seeing any BMWs or Porsches in the GTP field. In terms of GT3, well, the new and shiny syndrome has kicked in, and our top two are Corvettes. The brand new Corvette Z06R GT3 that was added to iRacing in the last season build. We've got a couple of the Ford Mustang GT3s in there as well. Daniel Trinka, Mark Kalin, Sean Stacker, etc. So a good representation of many brands here in GT3. We've got some Mercedes and Ferraris in there, as well as a couple of Porsches, an Audi as well, up near the top of the field in the form of Ted Lowendick. Also, just want to point out, good to see Fenson Brothers Racing here. I've had experience with the Fensons, Henry and Eric, the two brothers. Racing in in a sports car series down here in Australia that I commentate. So yeah, good to see that. Well, I didn't realize there were more Fensons out there. Turns out it really is a family effort.
Yeah, there's a few series on lots of different platforms that I commentate on, and there's brothers, there's father and son. They pop up everywhere, and you never really know what the connection is. But I mean, what's the time for you down in Australia at the moment? Because this must be quite fun with the session time, my time, and your time.
It is currently 9:45 a.m. for me. I'm on the west coast of Australia in Perth, so it's not the middle of the day like it is over east. It's sim racing commentary for breakfast for me. It's why I like doing these PRL races. I can jump up out of bed and instantly get on the PC and call some fantastic racing.
Yeah, but this race, how exciting it will be depends on how quickly I'll be able to get to sleep after this, being 2:45 in the morning here over in the UK, but it's only 10:15 over on the East Coast, 7:45 on the West Coast. It's great to have such international racing here on RaceSpotTV in PRL. Get everybody involved and just showing what the power of technology and iRacing can be. But we're about to get going then for the GTP and the GT3 race here in Portimao. It's the opening round of the season. We've already had our first LMP3 GT4 race, but it's the time for the fastest machines in the series. Off we go racing here in Portugal, and it's a cracking getaway from our leader, Pat Pelchat, as the 919 gets away towards turn 1 with absolute ease. The Cadillac not looking back as they run their way towards the opening corner. A couple of 2 wides in the mid-pack though as they run their way through the pinch point that really is turn 1 here at Portimao. But look at the GT3s, they're 4 wide in the mid-pack. It's absolute chaos as they make their way down towards turn 1. Are they all going to make their way through the opening corner unscathed? I'd be surprised. A lunge down the inside for the lead as they are 2 wide. They're 2 wide for P3 as well. You can see them all filter through, but somehow I think they've all made it through, Reese.
Incredible stuff in the GT3 category. It is on for P4 in GTP as well. One of the Cadillacs spinning around there. Looks like that's oh dear, that's Alex. Yeah, unfortunately, Alex de Almeida spinning around there. Looks like he's escaped the majority of damage. Matthew Denise has also found his way at the back of the field there as they try to make their way through. Looks like, oh dear, was that Hedgecock's running wide coming through the double apex corner there. Difficulty happening in GTP, but GT3 looks like they've sorted each other out for the most part. Shreyas Venkataraju has lost 7 spots in the GT3 field. Other than that, seems pretty stable, all things considered. I'm thinking the same, Dara. I was expecting an absolutely chaotic start in the GT3 category, but they somehow made it through turn 1.
Yeah, when we panned to them coming down the start-finish straight, I thought, oh my word, we're going to see an airplane crash here. But somehow, and credit to everybody, because they've all made their way through. Here was what happened to Matthew Denise, getting all out of shape through turn 4. Of course, difficult as you rise over the crest of the hill, but was losing the rear end and losing all of his positions. This was Alex de Almeida, who spun around down at the hairpin, got himself righted again before any kind of GT3 train came through. But here was Cody Cosgrove as well, having some issues through turn 1.
And
this
then
was on
Bradley
the second lap,
Holly.
I do believe. Yeah. Wow, my word. So difficult really on the opening laps, but so difficult for Bradley Holly. I mean, I'd love to have seen his face and his T-cam just gets checked up. Oh, yeah, with everybody checking up. Oh, yeah, just getting rear-ended there. That's not what you want on lap 2 of the season, really, is it?
No, it's not. It's a real shame. You know, Holly was doing the right thing there. He was getting on the brakes, trying to check up, avoid, and he got run into the back of for his troubles. So now he's lost the rear wing of his Acura, and he's going to have to get that thing repaired right now, as soon as he possibly can. Well, the fighting still happens here at the more to the rear of the GTP field. Jeremy Carter leading this pack with Darian Roy in the purple Acura ahead, and Karsten Quint, Nicholas Schwartz and Cody Cosgrove, who we saw spinning on the replay, right at the back of them now, looking to make up some time. Seems like the Cadillac of Carter has a little bit of an edge over Darian Roy down the straights, but I don't think he's going to be able to catch him up in time for the first couple of turns.
Again, the first couple of turns here at Portimao, difficult to make any kind of lunge. I mentioned how it's a pinch point. Really lucky that there's a nice bit of runoff. Here is the T-cam from Bradley Holly. I think it's fair to say he's not looking best pleased, but his car did look funky without any kind of rear wing. I also want to shout out the entire GT3 field. They're through the opening couple of laps, and the entire field of, 24 cars split by just about 18 seconds. That is just incredible stuff. No real incident to speak of, and great to see them all running so close together. Here's Evan Henneman, though. He is running a little bit further back from where he was. Good hold, sir. Just about making sure that he's not exactly pointing 90 degrees away from the circuit. Gets himself righted again, but really, this has been a cracking opening 5 minutes to this race, and hopefully going to lend itself to another 40 minutes of some great racing.
Yeah, well, if the battle for the lead is anything to go by, then we are in for one heck of a race. The two Corvettes leading the way at the front of the field, Brett Gardner and Corey Sassoni. This is a very nice battle. Corey tried to go for it at turn 1, if we all remember back to the first turn of the race. Seems like he and Gardner are very well matched, because Sassoni was only about a tenth or so, maybe 2/10 off Brett Gardner in terms of lap time, and is keeping it nice and clean behind. Eric Fenson, meanwhile, hearing a bit of a problem for him. Oh dear, yeah. I mean, that corner there, that's the double right coming onto the hill section. Very difficult to keep the car straight through that braking zone. And speaking of keeping the car straight, how's this? Fantastic little battle here. Ray Kingsbury got unsettled, and that allows Jeremy Carter back through. Looks like Kingsbury actually made his way ahead briefly, but ultimately that comes to naught. Slow exit, meanwhile, for Nicholas Schwartz behind. This is difficult. I mean, they're approaching the corners with such ferocity. Your reaction time needs to be absolutely perfect as Darian Roy goes for a slide out of the corner. They're almost going to go 3 wide down at the bottom of the hill here. Kingsbury finds his way past. So does Carter. But oh no, contact. Kingsbury and Roy come together.
Oh, and that was always going to happen, wasn't it? I thought they were absolutely madmen for trying to go 3 wide through turn 8, but just about didn't do it. And then the little loss of momentum as they got in towards 9 and 10, the double right-hander put paid to really both of their chances. This is the 25 and the 2-1-1, I should say. Yeah, the 2-1-1 just getting into the back. And again, Ramiro, I'm loving these slow-mo shots. As yeah, once you go around, you're just going to be collecting the other car. There's no way you can control your vehicle. And really unfortunate for the both of them. And lucky for the third car there to get away with it, I think it's fair to say. Just to touch on your point about the leaders in the GT3, I knew when I said Corey Cacconi that was definitely not right. I'm glad now that we've written down the
I don't know. I don't know if I'm right either, honestly.
Do you? Oh, okay. You know what? I'm going to go with you because yours makes far more sense than mine.
Yeah, I don't know. I found that I tend to have a good sense of how to pronounce names in general, and I go with my instinct, and usually it turns out to be right. But I'll hedge my bets and ask for a correction if need be. Of course, we do appreciate the international flavour of drivers here at the Precision Racing League. I also love the team Sassoni's a part of. Big Fast Racing. That is the perfect name for a racing team.
Yeah, what do we do here at the team? We go big, we go fast, we go racing. I mean, it just kind of sums up everything that these drivers were wanting to do, and really more as they get onto the iRacing platform. Here's Jake Cummings looking to come down the inside. I nearly made a very bad pun there, and I'm glad I steered away from it with Ted Lovendick just up in front for P3. But let's see, William Fenson just in behind as well in the number 7 car. This is a good battle for P3 as well as the battle we've got for the lead of the race. It's great to see how the longer we go into this race, the battles commence. But for the 999 car, something has gone heavily awry for Richard Saavedra.
Yeah, this is at turn 1, turns in and goes a bit deep, and the rear end's already gone at that point. Algarve's one of those circuits where you need to run the brake bias a little further back to get the rotation through those fast corners, but unfortunately it seems Saavedra having a lot of trouble with his rear end there. We're already seeing traffic situations for the GTPs. Hedgecox has already made his way through. Pelchat has gained a massive lead over Hedgecox at the moment, leading by 2.5 seconds. So this traffic might come into Hedgecox's favour depending on where Pelchat comes up to it.
Yeah, Rodrigo Abrao there, nearly going to the back of the 999 car as he makes his way through the double ride at 6 and 7. But now, you know, just arriving on the back of more GT3 traffic. It just never ends when there's 24 cars in the field, with them all being so close together. I think it's fair to say, but Abrao doing a good job for now. You can see Graham Wildmon going around the outside, trying to make that move, but he may come across to Nathan Ray, who's just stuck on that inside line. As one goes to the inside, one goes to the outside of the GT3, and they will continue their battle all the way through the long right-hander at turn 14. But we're still looking at Rodrigo Abrao, who's still negotiating his way through. But Nathan Ray, you can see them here, going wide there is Graham Wildmon, and Nathan Ray's threw up the inside, but now Graham's going to have that slip in the 53 car. Can he make it pay in towards 1?
He's coming, and he goes for it at turn 1. Oh, just clipping the anti-cut curb on the inside there. Ray will hold on, and Wildman's going to have to yield that one for now, probably using up a lot of the tyres there, and, well, gear up for the exit down the straight. This is your next passing opportunity. Rodrigo Abrao having a poor run through the traffic, and the Acura is coming.
Yeah, there are so many cars here now. There are 3 of these GTP, you know, nose to tail really, overtaking these GT3s as they work their way through the traffic. There's fighting with the GT3s going on as well while all this is happening as they come in towards 6 and 7. Inside line for Greg Wildmon, not going to work out this time around. Agonising for him. He's lost half a second at least through that corner, sitting in behind in a flash of the lights, showing his maybe slight discontent. Meanwhile, here's Brett Gardner and Corey Sassoni at the front of the field. They haven't been lapped just yet, but you'd expect Pat Pelchat to be right on the rear of these two in the next half a lap or so.
Yeah, the battle is still incredibly close between our 2 Corvettes at the front of the field. Pelchat is just entering the final corner now in the GTP lead, but fighting still on here. Towards the end of the lap, Alex de Almeida, who we saw having that unfortunate spin earlier, he's managed to work his way back up to 7th spot. He's almost back to the position he started in. Cody Crosgrove is the next car ahead, and I'm interested to see that despite Crosgrove's spin earlier, the traffic has worked out well for him. He's actually 3 positions up from where he started.
Yeah, good start from him. I mean, there's been good starts up and down the field, really. There's been some movers, particularly in the GT3s, who've kind of picked their way through the incidents that have occurred. But still looking at these battles going on with Alex de Almeida looking to make his way through on on some of these GT3s still as they come down towards the hairpin. Once again, a flash of the lights letting the GT3 know that he is there. Inside line to the hairpin, easily negotiated then by Almeida, and he will get the exit that he so requires. We'll get through on the next GT3 as well. And it really is just a battle of surviving when you get to this stage, isn't it, Reed? Because as a GTP, you're trying to keep up the pace, but you're also aware that there is GT3 after GT3 after GT3, and you can see there Cody Cosgrove nearly making a big error, allowing De Almeida through.
Yeah, well, he actually made contact with the GT3 just before he got onto the screen. Bradley Holly re-emerging from the pit lane at a very slow speed after getting his repairs done. I'm not sure what's gone on there for Bradley. He is back out on track, but I don't know exactly what the issue was there. He's probably had some trouble getting the engine started. In any case, Alex de Almeida, this is the view of the battle for 5th place in GTP, and look at that, flicking to the inside of Cody Cosgrove, who's got that damage to his front left now. Could be a little bit down on straight line speed, but he's managed to hold on to it, for now at least. Oh, he's going to go back up the inside out of turn 1. Beautiful undercut there from Cody Cosgrove.
Move of the day by for sure for Cody Cosgrove there. Just set him up a treat, let him go to that inside, lulled him into that false sense of security and said, yeah, thank you very much. I'll take you back up the inside towards turn 2. And Cody Cosgrove defending valiantly his P6 in the number 18 car as we reach about 1/3 of a distance in this race. De Almeida still looking for his way through. They've still got GT3s to lap. They just never go away, do they, for the GTPs? They're having their own personal fights, but they can only have them for so long as they approach who I do believe are the leaders now. Yes, they are in the GT3. Brett Gardner, Corey Sassoni, 1 and 2 still, and they've built up a nice gap back to Lovendick, Cummings, and Fenson, who were kind of running in a trio, quite a ways ahead of Daniel Trinker in P6.
Yeah, it's quite good runnings in the GT3 class. You know, we have had our fair share of incidents for the likes of Eric Fenson, I think, is the probably the worst placed of them, spending 2 minutes in the pits to get damage repaired. But other than that, the only drivers that have really lost out, Evan Henneman down in 24th, and Shreyas Venkataraju in P14, losing 7 spots. Our GT3 leaders already making their way across the line here, keeping an eye on the number 55, I believe, or is it 95? I can't quite see from this angle. A nice little battle emerging here, coming through the first turns. Yeah, Jake Cummings, yeah, 95. There we go. Finally got it done. Cummings, I think, has been struggling to keep up with Ted Lowendick here. Lowendick, the only Audi in the field from what I can see. And he's actually proving that car, despite not being the most popular choice, pretty darn quick.
They're doing very well at the moment. At this stage of the race, not really looking too much under pressure. We're looking at this battle in the GT3s, but meanwhile, hello everybody, we are the GTPs and we want your positions and we want your piece of racetrack that you're looking to be driving on. Around the outside will go that beautifully purple car around the outside of Chris Stewart as they'll run their way through turn 6 and 7. Can be two of the most difficult, or 7 and 8 I should say, two of the most difficult corners on the racetrack. With the nature of the camber and the nature of the exit of the corner being so uphill, so easy just to lose that rear end and see yourself spinning around, facing the wrong way and looking a little bit further down the hill than you'd be wanting to. But as they try to negotiate the middle sector, Pat Pelchat, I mean, he's built up now a 5-second lead over the rest of the field. Jack Hedgecox is, floundering in behind at this stage, and Pat Pelchat having a couple of laps in free air, not for much longer as you can see more GT3s, doing a very nice job indeed as there's incident further back.
Alvarado.
And that's the number, it's number 3 car, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Gabriel Alvarado, unfortunately going for a spin here. Again, a car losing it on entry through a sweeping corner. Fortunately making his way off the circuit and out of the way, but it looks like he was slightly beached there on the edge of the circuit. Yeah, interesting point about Pelchat and Hedgecox at the front of the GTP field. Hedgecox, known for his exploits in the LMP2 class. Remember, prior to this season, as the GT3 lead battle continues on, prior to this season, this was the GTP and LMP2 series. So Hedgecox was competing in that sub-prototype class as Kalen gets back going after a spin in his Mustang. Oh, but it just continues on. Mark's not having a very fun time. Usually an oval racer, is dipping his toes into road racing again for this season. So yeah, Hedgecox jumping up a class to cars that he may not be as familiar with as his trusty Dallara P217, but he's doing quite well right now. Probably going to rely on Pelchat having trouble in traffic, though, if he wants to have a run at the lead.
Yeah, I mean, Pelchat he's just gaining away, isn't he, at this stage? He's using the traffic really to his advantage, working well with it. Not the best runs through the hairpin. Should easily make his way through up towards 6 and then in towards 7 and 8. There's an LMP, a GTP, I should say, that he's about to lap, you know, on the road. I think that's Ray Kingsbury, who I don't think is going to put up much of a fight when he gets to the back, but who does know? We're over a third of the way into this race now. For Pelchat around the outside of the GT3, beautifully done. We'll get the exit off of the corner, and I think he might get the move here on Kingsbury as well, but Kingsbury, he doesn't look like he's playing ball at this stage for Pelchat, and I think he'll be hoping that he gets out of the way rather soon. And there he goes, just going a little bit further around the outside, and Pelchat will continue on in the lead, looking nice and calm there. That's Jake Cummings. It's not Pelchat, it's Jake Cummings. He's looking nice and calm, but I mean, I wouldn't be calm if I've got William Fenton 5 tenths behind me.
Yeah, Jake is having quite the fight to contend with here. It's Corvette versus Ferrari, there's been some technical issues for William Fenton behind, so Cummings is going to have to be careful of that. Regardless, 26 minutes remaining on the clock, and we're still waiting on pit stops for a lot of these drivers. It's a longer race in this GTP and GT3 series, but a pit stop is still required. For the time being, looks like everyone's just getting into the rhythm, trying to figure out where they're at, and then they'll be able to execute their pit cycles, see if they can get some kind of fuel undercut, if that's even possible. Oh,
absolutely. Oh, hello! There is a
that's
GT3 in the middle of the road. No, that's Graham Wildmon, who's just gone to the M25. For anybody in the UK, I'm sure there's an equivalent to a lot of congestion on the roads across the world, but not the ideal line. Graham Wildmon going to the inside, thinking, "Yep, got that move done." Whoa, who's there? And
Doug Evans is the answer.
Yeah, just sat where he wanted to be, and Graham was like, "Right, well, okay, I'll wait for you. Get out of the way, and then I'll carry on with my day. Thank you very much."
Yeah, Doug Evans having a couple of problems out there. He's running a bit further down in the GT3 field, but he's still reasonably up from where he started. So yeah, that's something that you need to be careful of. I think the problem for Wildman there was you can't actually see very well out of these GTP cars. The front windscreen is very small and the B pillars are very wide, so he probably didn't see Evans until it was too late. Problem meanwhile for Thomas Yankee. This is GTP's coming up on him here. Did he get spooked? Did he drag the brakes a little bit too much? That's exactly what happened. Just unsettled. Seems like the Mustang is having a lot of trouble with the rear end around here.
Not looking comfortable, is it? I think it's fair to say. There's lots of drivers that are looking comfortable, not less Pelchat. Nathan Ray, though, down the inside, in which is that beautiful purple car. I have to say, I love a good purple car, or a green car, or a yellow car. So, you know, if anybody wants to put on a nice livery and get some extra points, I don't see why you would, but there you go. There's your task. 23.5 minutes. Pit stops are ongoing. We're just about halfway through this race. But the gap, I think especially the gaps have opened up a little bit in the battles. Pelchat you know, 5.5 seconds in the lead, and there's over 5 seconds back to Rodrigo Abrao. You know, the gaps have opened up somewhat, but it only takes one little incident, like we saw with Graham Wildmon, to really undo all of that work that you've done.
Yeah, indeed. You know, coming to a complete stop on the circuit, costing yourself seconds at a time there, as pit lane has some activity going on. It looks like that's Evan Henneman in the Ferrari making his way out of his pit box and past the stricken cars here. I believe Gabriel Alvarado was the car that he was making his way past there in the pit lane. Meanwhile, William Fenson, he's got plenty of fighting to do here. Jake Cummings turning in nice and early. Oh, well, that explains why Fenson turned in late. Hello, GTP. Goodbye, GTP. Such huge acceleration in those cars.
Yes, I mean, they were made really just to be the pinnacle of sports car racing, and they absolutely are, aren't they? I mean, they are absolute machines when it comes to any form of racetrack. You know, not least, I should say, the likes of Daytona, the likes of Le Mans, the likes of even Long Beach look absolutely fantastic going around. And a circuit like Portimao, you mentioned it's a relatively recent circuit. They race so well around places like this, which were made for good racing, and not just, you know, single-seaters, but sports car racing and, of course, motorcycle racing as well. You can't forget the MotoGP tests here regularly, as well as races here. So, you know, pleasure to see these cars race so well around a circuit like this, and especially when we've got the GT3s on the same circuit. We're seeing lots and lots of chopping and changing in terms of the order. Thomas Yankee sitting down in his room, nice and dark. I mean, Reese, for you, I've had this conversation with some others on different streams, but do you prefer a darker room or a brighter room when you're racing?
I tend to prefer a lighter room. I like to take care of my eyesight. I already suffer from pretty intense myopia, which means I have a very I have a pretty thick pair of glasses now, and so I want to take care of my eyes. You know, I spend pretty much all day sitting in front of screens, and I like my surroundings to be well lit just to take care of my eyes. But I suppose when it comes to personal preference, a lot of drivers do prefer darker rooms because it allows them to focus on what's on the screen in front of them, much like Brett Gardner's doing here. You can see that the lights are pretty dimmed in his room as well, and he's doing quite a good job. He's focused. He is wired into that Corvette right now, still leading the GT3 class, and he stretched that lead out some. Corey Sassone now falling back into the clutches of Ted Lowendick.
Yes, and some some wise facial hair, I was going to say, on Brett Gardner there. Really a man who definitely strokes his beard while thinking, and I can't blame him. He's doing a very good job at the moment. 5 seconds in the lead of this race. But let's see if he can keep this one up. Nice tight line through the final meaningful corner. Turn 15 to the line is generally flat out, very slow moving. GTP is getting lapped there. Could be Carson Quint there on the inside, or even Nicholas Svart. But here is the battle for P4. Nathan Ray, Graham Wildmon. Graham Wildmon won't want to be here. He'll feel like he should be far and away ahead of Nathan Ray if it wasn't for that incident that cost him so much time down at the hairpin. But as it is, he's in P5. He's going to have to make that move on the track. And let's see if he can do it down towards turn 1, unless he's coming to the pit lane, which has happened for Corey Sassone.
Yeah, Sassone making his way in. First of our GT3 front runners to jump into the lane. We'll see if that helps him out here. Bradley Holly, meanwhile, back out on track, and he's dealing pretty well with the car at the moment. It's been fully repaired, and he's just trying to get some track time now at the moment. He's in 36th overall. He's behind 22 of our GT3 runners, so you know, at the very least, he'll get some more experience around this circuit and try and get some points on the board as well. Remember, in PRL, if you finish in the classified distance, there's points given all the way down the field, and the points gaps are quite small. So any points you can get can pay dividends by the end of the season.
And it all adds up, doesn't it? I know we say it all the time, but it really does all add up. It's so important to get those points at the start of the season. I mean, we've been so used to, working out championship permutations in recent weeks. Season 2 of 2024 kind of came to an end, but now Season 3 is underway, fresh slate, no championship standings to think about, at least until next week for us. And it really just means that the guys who want to be having their names talked about in that championship picture are going to have to get those points in early, lest they're going to be, dropping back a little bit more than they possibly would want to, and maybe have to rely on some kind of late surge in the championship, which can be so difficult to come by, especially with some of the, chaos and carnage that we've seen in the races today. Nathan Ray has come into the pit lane in his GTP car. He was just ahead of Graham Wildman, of course. Let's see how this all pans out in terms of the pit strategy battle. I'm sure this is going to be interesting as well in terms of the fact with the fuel going in, Graham Wildman should surely put a little bit less fuel in the car.
Hedgecock's was in as well, running second before the pit stops. So early call to the pits there for Hedgecock. We'll see how Pelchat responds to that. He's got enough of a lead that he can play around a little bit more with his strategy. Pit stops are completed. We're seeing stops running from around 14 to 17 seconds. Actually, Jack Hedgecock's with a suspiciously long pit stop there. 16.8 seconds in the box for him compared to 14 seconds for the likes of Ray Kingsbury and Karsten Quint. Slow Porsche on the exit of the turn there. Something happening here for Nicholas Schwartz as well, making his way past the two Mustangs there, but immediately going into the gravel trap. That's not what you want to see. Schwartz has already made 2 visits to the pits, and the second one he just drove straight through. I think he's been having trouble with the incident limit.
Yeah.
Oh no, Karsten!
Is not the line, I think it's fair to say, that you want to be taking. Don't go back. Oh, you're a very scared driver in behind, trying to avoid there the incident in front. But let's see, 16 minutes left of this race. Still fighting going on. The 47 car of Jeremy Carter's on the back of Cody Cosgrove now, looking for a move. Not going to go for it down in towards turn 1. Looking for that exit, though, through the opening corner. And you can see how much more speed was carried off of turn 1 by Carter just by taking that exit. You're going to see this again quickly, just to see the bit in behind. Oh, my word, it's getting out of the way. Very nice pirouette, though, from Karsten Quint, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, that's it's the best case scenario. When you have a spin, you end up pointing in the direction you want to go. So he was able to get back going nicely. Cosgrove versus Carter then. Battling for 4th on track at the moment, but they are 2 of the remaining GTPs that haven't taken their stop yet, and Cosgrove goes for a slide in the corner. Just lost it under brakes there, but he got on the throttle to stabilize the car. Unfortunately, has now lost the position there to Jeremy Carter, who now has 3 seconds over him.
See, I mean, Jeremy Carter's really picking up the pieces there. Cody Cosgrove left him, and I know someone who's going to be pleased about that is going to be Graham Wildman, who will be absolutely licking his lips at the chance of maybe picking up the position with the pit strategy. Rodrigo Abrao is into the pit lane in the GTP category, losing out to Graham Wildman. Where will he come out, though? This is going to be the big question in comparison to some of the others. Onto his marks, up on the jacks. Not quite yet, actually. Maybe not going up at all. Just filling up with some fuel. But for the number 14 car, Abrao has given a very good race so far. He's been up there in the top 5 all race long. It's going to be interesting to see if he can finish that off in the last 15 minutes or so.
Indeed. It's a bit of a long stop, though, for Rodrigo. That is longer than I expected. He's up to 26 seconds in the lane now. And, yeah, I think there's been a big issue on that car for Rodrigo. You know, like you say, he was running so well, but he's still in the lane. You know what? I'm starting to think he might have sped into the pits because, you know, you end up getting a 40-second stop and hold if you enter the pits too quickly, and that can absolutely ruin your race. I think Abrao, yeah, just getting out of the box now, 55 seconds. He definitely went too fast into pit lane.
Yeah, not looking great for him. But, I mean, with only 40 minutes left in this race, time is really ticking down. If mistakes are going to be made now, there's not enough time to really rectify them, is there? 14 minutes are on that clock. We're still waiting for pit stops from that top four. All as the GT3 off of the track from Pelchat, Wildmon, Carters and Cosgrove are waiting to come into the pit lane. In the GT3s, there were a couple there outside the top 6 who are yet to come into the pit lane, but no one who's really in the battle for the win or the big points. I think it's, you know, I think. So Eric Fenson's been in twice. Oh no, it's now showing... oh no, Doug Evans, there we go. Doug Evans there, not pitting just yet, but he may be in the pit lane right now. Still fighting going on though, as they make their way through turn 1 and turn 2. Jeremy Carters and Cody Cosgrove now are the ones fighting over second place. Wide line from the both of them. And I'm surprised with that from Carters. That's not Carters, that's a lap car. That's why he was going away. Apologies for that. Cody Cosgrove is in behind here. But yeah, difficult to make your way through the traffic at such a slow speed part of the racetrack.
Problem for Gabriel Alvarado coming out of the pits. What's happened to him here? Very slow on the way out. He was just letting the GTPs go there. Didn't want to get in the way. That's good for him. He'll have lost some time, but at least there's less potential for a crash. Chris Treiber, I was wrong. Not the only Audi in the field is Ted Lowendick, but the other Audi having some trouble keeping the rear end under him. And the Audi tends to be one of those cars that is a little twitchier than the other GT3 runners. But Carter versus Cosgrove. Cody has caught right up to him again thanks to the traffic. They still have yet to come into the pits. Our leader in GTP, Pat Pelchat, has come into the lane. We'll see if he's nailed that. Expecting Carter and Cosgrove in this lap, if not the next one. And Carter's going to go for it, so is Cosgrove. So where are they going to come out? They've among the drivers that have gone the longest in the GTP class. And with them in the pits, the field is cleansed. Everyone has come into the pits.
And then we'll be racing all the way to the flag. And I say all the way, it's not that far. 12 minutes or so left of this one. Jack Hedgecock's easily through and up into P2. He's not too close to Pat Pelchat at all. Pelchat with a 12-second advantage after coming out of the pit lane. Here comes Nathan Ray in the purple machine. He'll inherit P3 as the others are stopped in the pit lane. And I think Graham Wildman will also inherit P4. Let's see. Yes, he overtakes both of them. And it doesn't look particularly close. Carters and Cosgrove, though, should be pulling out of the pit lane very soon, but not before Alex de Almeida goes through, and he jumps up into P5. So Carter's out in P6, but definitely some work to do if anything can be done in the remaining time in this race. But that's the GTP battle, where the gaps have opened up. It's been a little bit close to GT3, but Brett Gardner still about 8 seconds in front of Corey Sassoni, and then a couple of seconds ahead of Ted Lowendick as well. So they aren't done really for the podium positions in the GT3s.
Yeah, Brett Gardner putting down a fantastic drive here in the first round of the season. But yeah, Sassoni only has 2.2 seconds back to Lowendick, so needs to minimize errors and just have a clean race to the end. And he can lead home a 1-2 for the Corvettes in this field. Obviously, they are of different teams. But yeah, with the pit cycle completed, the only real battle is that one. There's lots of space between many of the cars here in these late stages.
Let's see if anybody can really make any of these moves pay and give themselves a nice little boost in terms of the points as we work our way through this opening round of the season. Brett Gardner, he's looked calm and collected all the way through, hasn't he? We saw him, you know, his camera not too long ago, and he looks calm, he didn't look flustered. And why would he? 7 seconds in the lead, that gap is growing out all the time. And really, all he has to worry about is just making sure that the GTPs, if any do approach the back of him, get through with ease and don't really bother him too much, because that really is probably going to be the main sticking point in his race. But we're looking at the GTP battle here, or one of the GTP cars of Ray Kingsbury. I noticed that Nicholas Schwartz is out. Was there maybe some contact there?
Yeah, I've just noticed that myself. I'm rewinding at the moment to see what happened to Schwartz, and it just looks to me like he had a technical issue and lost connection to the server. So unfortunate there for Nicholas Schwartz. but yeah, he'll have made his way a long way into this race. It would have been heartbreaking for him to have that technical issue rear its ugly head.
Like a technical issue, do they? It's just the worst thing, because you can't really, I mean, who are you going to complain to? Your internet provider? I mean, like, there's nothing that they can do at the moment, you know. It's because it's awful. Whenever you're doing it, I remember watching, you know, a football game that England were in about a few years ago, and the internet cut out in the last few minutes, and it was absolutely awful. Albeit, no, I wasn't doing anything directly, but you know, when the internet drops out, there's nothing you can do. It can just feel so bad, and you just have to accept it and live with the fact that there's nothing you can do about it. But regardless, there's lots else going on out on track. We're looking at a replay now of Jack Hedgecock. So something happened to him.
Oh, I think so. Maybe. I'm not sure. Hedgecock's is still out there. He's still racing. I think it might just be on scenic cameras, that replay. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything that's gone wrong for Hedgecock's.
Well, it's nice to see the scenic cameras anyway, isn't it? Because these cars look fantastic going through the roller coaster that is Portimao. But yes, we were saying 7.5 minutes left in this race, and the battles are still ongoing, aren't they? Graham Wildmon, I have to say, I do love the livery from Graham Wildmon. He looks relatively comfortable in P4, but it's going to be one of those things where he's 7 seconds behind Nathan Ray. He'll be thinking that he could have gained those 7 seconds back if he didn't have that instant down at the hairpin.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, that's the nature of multi-class racing, isn't it? Sometimes you just get caught up in something happening in another class, and you just have to deal with that. I think, you know, a podium definitely out of reach, but I think Wildman will still be happy with a P4 if he can hold on to this. Other than that, he's had a clean race and hasn't taken any damage, which is more than can be said for a few other drivers.
It would have been
Ray's
even
back
better
in the
in
pits.
that earlier race. He is back in
Nathan
the
Ray.
pits.
Yeah.
Black Dash, maybe?
Maybe didn't put enough fuel in the car. Oh, he's got a black flag. Black flag from iRacing. I think he's exceeded the incident limit.
Ah, yes. So that would have been, what, 13, I believe it is. 13 incidents for a drive-through, which I believe which is what he's just served. And the disqualification is at 17, so we can't have 4 more. You'd think he'd be okay, considering that we are, you know, well past 75 half an hour. But regardless, out of the pit lane was Nathan Ray, down in P7 now, but he's right on the back of Cody Cosgrove to try and recover a position in the top 6. We'll have to see if we can pop into that battle when we can. Here's Brett Gardner, 7 seconds in the lead, isn't he, in the GT3 battle? He just looks at ease, he looks calm, he looks collected, and why wouldn't he be? I mean, he's heading for a first win of the season in the opening race of the season. That championship leader tag next to his name when we get to the next round, and it's all looking hunky-dory for him, isn't it?
Yep, just needs to keep it clean to the end. Only 5 minutes remaining in the race, and he has a lot of a gap to play with. He can take his time getting past traffic. Here's the battle then. Nathan Ray having just come out of the pits to serve that drive-through penalty. And Nathan Ray will find himself looking at a potential P6 here. Cosgrove with his fair share of incidents as well. You'd expect that Ray will be the faster of the two, considering where he was. But Ray only 1 position ahead of where he started as a result of everything that happened to him. Cody Cosgrove up 3 spots. There's also a fight here between William Fenson and Jake Cummings now. Fenson trying to hold on to P4 in the Ferrari, and Cummings, well, we've had plenty of time with him in this race. He's had a very eventful one indeed.
He absolutely has. I mean, there's been a few drivers who have been here, there and everywhere, not just in this race, but also in the race we saw earlier with the LMP3s and the GT4s. But, you know, a fair share of the drivers in this race have got up and down the grid, been looking the right way, looking the wrong way, and there's still a battle here with Cody Cosgrove. This is the one I was mentioning with Cody Cosgrove and Nathan Ray for P6 and P7. Ray, after serving that drive through, looking to recover to P6 here. He's not going to be able to get any higher unless there's a big crash between Almeida and Jeremy Carter. But with just over 3 minutes to go, you'd think there's another 2 laps at the end of this one for Pat Pelchat. It's looking like Cody Cosgrove's defending well, but he's just using that GT3 to his advantage at this stage.
Yeah, I almost thought for a moment that was where the move had been made, but Cosgrove placing his car perfectly. Nathan Ray will have to wait for another opportunity here, making their way past Fenson there. Bit more space now between Fenson and Cummings as a result of that little bit of GTP traffic. Rodrigo Abreu isn't too far behind these guys either. He's got about 4 seconds to make up in 2.5 minutes, which is nigh impossible, but you never know. Cosgrove is still carrying some damage to his front left. Nathan Ray is looking quick. They'll battle, and that might gain Abreu some time at the end.
It absolutely might, but he's making the positions through the GT3 traffic really quite nicely at this stage of the race. You get into a bit of a rhythm, don't you, when you have been doing it for so long. But here's Jeremy Carter now. Great run on the back of De Almeida. And he's going to get to the inside here. It doesn't really look like there was too much there. I thought for half a second there was a little bit of contact, but they've got themselves through and down towards turn 1 without rubbing any kind of bodywork. Inside line for Jeremy Carter. Can he make this stick on the inside of the GT3? Yes, he can. That was bold and it was brave, but it worked out. But it's Alex De Almeida back up the inside at turn 3, and he has retaken P4. These guys are fighting fantastically well.
Yeah, brilliant battle. A slightly better exit for Carter, though. And, Almeida going defensive here. Couple of moves to the inside. I don't think Carter's going to be too happy with him on that front, but the battle will continue. Straighten it up. Try and put the power down. Careful of the Mustang ahead. And all you got to do is wait for this next corner here. Doesn't seem like there's much of an issue for either driver, fortunately, so they'll continue on for the next minute. Pat Pelchat has just made his way through the first couple of turns with a minute to go, so I get the feeling this is going to be our last lap. Oh, no. That's Jake Cummings that's gone for a spin down at the hairpin. And unfortunately, he's lost the position there to Chris Stewart. He's out of the top 5. And Travis Pruitt, further down in the GT3 field, also having some big issues, doing a little bit of lawn mowing in that Porsche on his way back to the racetrack. But it looks like Pat Pelchat is about to come to the end of this final lap as the battle is still on there between Carter and De Almeida. Carter finally making his way past.
See Barney there waving the white flag. This will now be the last lap. Carter's De Almeida down towards turn 1. The battle for P4. It looks like Carter's does have this one now, as he's pulled a little bit away from the number 47 car, but all it takes is a bad run behind one of these GT3s and it will all come undone. De Almeida, though, had a bad run himself through turn 3, and he has dropped nearly a second back, so it looks like Jeremy Carter's has this one wrapped up with a bow on top for P4. Graham Wildmon will be on for a P3, but meanwhile up at the front is Pat Pelchat. I mean, we've had such a long race. Oh, not such a long race. He's had such a big lead, and he's going to convert it into the win. He crosses the line. Nearly half a minute that Pat Pelchat will win the opening race by in the GTP GT3 Challenge. And it is the 919 who wins this race, and he's going to be the championship leader when we make our way to round 2 in 7 days' time. Congratulations to him after a fantastic race. Brett Gardner looks like he'll be the one to come across the line first in the GT3s, and he's driven a fantastic race, Reese.
Oh yeah, absolutely has. Barely put a foot wrong the whole time. You can see he's working the wheel pretty hard, so he's certainly not coasting to the finish here, but kept out of trouble. He's giving the GTPs plenty of space. He knows that he's got a lead of 6 seconds or so, and he'll be able to come away with a fantastic first round of the season. Pole position, leading pretty much the whole way. You can't get more perfect than that. Oh, and Nathan Ray's gotten past Cody Cosgrove just ahead of him at the final couple of corners too for 6th place in GTP, but celebration for Brett Gardner. You see the relief on his face.
Yeah, very much. Well, I'm glad it's finally over now. I was winning that race by a distance. I just was waiting for the checkered flag to fly in front of me to confirm my position. And you can see a little bit of a fist pump there, showing that he's pleased with that win in the number 17 car. And why wouldn't you be when you drove with such conviction as we saw Brett Gardner drive with in this opening round of the season? Of course, 9 rounds in this season. It's not the longest. You know, by any stretch of the imagination. So getting the points on the board early, getting that win in is going to be crucial as we work our way through. But here are our results from the GTPs. And Pat Pelchat, look at that winning margin. After 29 laps, 45 minutes, he's basically taken a second a lap out of his closest competitor of Jack Hedgecox, who is in P2. Graham Wildmon, despite his issues, we saw that moment down at turn 5 at the hairpin, where he got caught up behind a GT3. It hasn't stopped him picking up a podium in P3. Jeremy Carters and Alex de Almeida fought it hard for P4 and 5, as did Nathan Ray and Cody Cosgrove. Less than 2/10 split them as they crossed the line for 6th and 7th. Rodrigo Abrao and Matthew Denise in 8th and 9th, after Denise had issues on the opening lap, and Carsten Quint rounded out that top 10 over a lap down on the leader. Darian Roy, Ray Kingsbury, Nicholas Schwartz and Bradley Holly were the other drivers in the GTP category. Schwartz, Holly and Kingsbury not quite seeing the flag. We move over to the GT3 field, and it's of course a larger field, much more cars, 26 to be exact, but it was won in the end by Brett Gardner by 5 seconds, a little bit closer than it was a little bit earlier on in the race. I think maybe a little bit of pace came off the car in the number 17, making sure he got it to the end. Corey Sassoni was in P2 in the 86, not too far ahead of Tud Lovendick, who is in P3. William Fenson and Chris Stewart in 4th and 5th, and they were the only drivers who finished on the same lap as Brett Gardner, as Jake Cummings was lapped one more time by our winner in the GTPs. Shreyas Venkataraju was 7th with Dean Giroux and Richard Saavedra, as well as Sean Stecker in the top 10 of the field. As we move on to Daniel Trolinka, Mark Kalin and Bowie Suen in the top 13. It was Corey Fenson, the other of the Fenson brothers, in P14, with Jake Mackey in 15th, Doug Evans and Kerry Corcoran in 16th and 17th, with Evan Henneman, Thomas Yankee and Eric Fenson rounding out that top 20. The third of the Fensons. Sean Murphy, Chris Schreiber, Travis Pruitt were among those who I didn't believe saw the flag, and a couple who definitely didn't see the checkered flag. Gabriel Alvarado, Ryan Reeves and Brendan Shatley, who definitely didn't see the checkered flag. 27 laps down. Fast lap 130.6. You know, quite nice and even on the 90-second mark. But overall race, fair to say, a great race. Great to see so many drivers up there or thereabouts, and great to see the battles that we did see between all the classes.
Yeah, indeed. It was less of a chaotic race than we saw in the LMP3 and GT4 race earlier, but still very entertaining indeed, and there were some fantastic drives, first and foremost being Pat Pelchat, who joins us now.
Hello.
Hello, Pat. I mean, congratulations on the win. Fantastic result. We were talking about how that gap seemed to grow out, you know, when you look at the result, by about a second a lap. So you had fantastic pace. I mean, that must have been quite a comfortable evening, or was there always a bit of jeopardy?
Algarve is kind of not my track, really. I worked hard this week just trying to get a good grip on the setup and just getting the car dialed in. A lot of practice as usual, but yeah, I think it paid off in the end. I'm quite happy, and I think I think the whole team was pretty competitive with the set we had, so I'm fairly happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're saying that this isn't your track and you still won by nearly 30 seconds, that is going to strike a little bit of fear into the others in the field. I mean, first week in a 9-week season, getting those points on the board, getting the result in, does that help with the confidence going into the next few weeks, especially if this wasn't your track? Especially,
yeah. It was... I needed a good result at this track to, you know, start the season on a high point, and Jack was very fast last week at the Watkins, and well, I know the Acura had a BOP, but Jack was mighty quick, and you know, it wasn't my mind for the whole week, and I was looking forward to this race tonight, and seeing where it would end up. And yeah, I'm fairly happy with the preparation and the result shows. So that's pretty good.
Absolutely. I mean, just a final thought as well. You know, we saw some drivers having some issues with the traffic. Did you get into kind of like a rhythm with the traffic where you kind of knew what to expect with the GT3s, you knew where they were going to place the car, what kind of speed they took into the corners? So basically, I think I'm asking, did it become a little bit easier as you went through the race to manage that traffic?
The Algarve is very much a one-line track, so it's very hard for multi-class, and you know, it's not very fluid and stuff like that. So yeah, traffic was okay. There was a couple instances where GT3s tried to get out the way, which is not helping, but I guess as the season will go on, everyone will get used to each other, and people will find a groove, so it's gonna get better. But yeah, I think the track and being the first race of the season didn't help tonight. Traffic was okay at best.
Yeah, but I mean, congratulations regardless. You got the win on the board, and if you're going to have more confidence going to the next weeks, then we'll surely be talking to you soon.
All right, hey, see you guys.
We'll chat there. Our GTP winner in the race this evening, and very comfortable for him, Race.
Oh yeah, very comfortable indeed. We're now joined by Jack Hedgecox, who finished P2. Man, it must have been difficult, Jack. You're in the Cadillac, in a field that's majority Acuras, but still, to get the result you did, fantastic job.
Yeah, I figured it was probably going to be a best result of P2 based on the practice the whole week, really. I don't know if it was Cadillac or what, but the braking on some of these corners was so hit or miss. You would be spinning out sometimes, so definitely had to just survive more than really push. Couldn't really fight with Pat, but I'm just glad I could finish second after all that, everything that happened that race. So yeah, overall, just hoping next week I can be a little bit more competitive too. Don't make it as easy for him.
Yeah, speaking of competitiveness, you know, you were known for your exploits when the LMP2s were a part of this series. With the transition to GT3 as the slower class, you've moved up to GTP. I suppose we could get some insight from you as to what it's like to transition up to these much quicker GTP cars with hybrid power.
Yeah, it's definitely with the braking, I think it's just more like a situational thing, just with what I have to work with. But the braking was a lot more manageable, trail braking, and just getting that minimum speed through the corners in the LMP2 compared to the GTPs. It's kind of hard to really find the limit in this without spinning it. So hopefully I'm able to work towards that, and then just the traction as well. In the LMP2, you could kind of already get on the power mid corner to get into the RPM torque range. In this, you really gotta watch it. Definitely lose traction really easily. Glad where I'm at in the standings, you know, in terms of the competitive field, moving up. But I'm thinking every week, hopefully, I should be able to get better and better as time goes on. So, looking forward to it.
Yeah, as are we, Jack. Congratulations, and see you next week.
See y'all next week. Have a good week.
Good stuff there from Jack Hedgecox, and a podium in the end for Graham Wildman, Dara. Certainly unexpected there.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people in the chat as well have been looking forward to a Graham interview, and I think now is the time. So Graham, welcome and congratulations on the P3. I mean, that was a bit of an up and down race for you, wasn't it? There was that moment down at the hairpin. Tell us what was going through your head when you were overtaking that GT3 as you made your way to the inside, and then there was just all of a sudden another one blocking your path.
Yeah, it was definitely unexpected to come around that corner and see that car there. I could have gone up the inside, but he jumped into first gear there and moved forward, and it spooked me, so I just waited for him to get out of the way. Other than that, it was a fairly good race. Definitely some stuff to work on.
Absolutely, but of course, getting that podium first off must be great for the confidence. You're working your way through the order. I mean, it didn't necessarily look possible that you'd get a P3 halfway through that race, especially with that incident. But were you pleased to kind of pick up a couple of positions here and there as the race drew on and kind of get onto that podium?
Oh yeah, I was over the moon there. This is, you know, one of my first times driving this car, so I put in a lot of work trying to get better at it.
and we definitely have a long gap to go with the top two. But yeah, it was definitely a good learning race. Definitely had better pace than I thought, and I was glad I was able to pick up a couple positions after some weird incidents.
Then looking forwards, I mean, we heard a couple of the other drivers saying that maybe this wasn't their track, maybe they'll look forward to other weeks. Are you looking forward to the coming weeks? Of course, now being P3 in the championship, you're really in that championship picture already, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. This track has been a favorite of mine from way back in my race ring days, so I've always loved this track. It's definitely a new challenge with the 3D curbs, but we look like we got a great schedule coming up and some highlights from your Daytona and a couple others. But yeah, I'm excited for it, and hopefully I can put up a good fight in the championship.
Hopefully so. But thanks very much for talking to us. I can see in the chat that very popular to get a word from you, so we'll hopefully speak to you again soon. But in the meantime, great work on the livery, and yeah, good luck for next week.
Thanks, guys. Hopefully I'll see you again next week.
Brilliant stuff from Graham Wildman. Meanwhile, in GT3, it was the Brett Gardner show. He's here with us in his Corvette. Great stuff from you, Brett. Perfect way to start off the season.
Hey, yeah, I'm gonna have to say I agree.
Yeah, indeed. It was. It seemed like you weren't really all that troubled, apart from a bit of battling early on with Corey Sassoni. Did it really just come down to managing traffic and just being aware of when the GTPs were coming up on you?
I was more worried about my tires, to be honest, with that whole race. I had to change driving styles halfway through just so I wouldn't lazy spin in half the corners. So I definitely kept my eye on the rearview mirror, but I was definitely trying to keep my tires underneath me more than anything.
Yeah, definitely seemed like you were working the wheel hard in the later stages, trying to keep that car straight. I suppose Algarve is just one of those circuits where it's very easy for that sort of thing to happen. A lot of fast corners, a lot of elevation change. You're basically managing the weight transfer all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. That poor left rear is just taking so much heat and anguish on this track that I'm pretty sure just chews up rubber anyway. So,
well, regardless, a fantastic result for you starting off this season. Do you think that there's more in that from for the rest of the rounds?
I sure hope so. Definitely looking forward to some of the tracks coming up this season. Not looking forward to some other ones, but that's okay. You win some, you lose some, huh?
Indeed you do, but this time you won plenty. Congratulations again, and hopefully we get a chance to chat to you next week.
Thank you, guys.
Brett Gardner with a great run to victory there. Next up, Dara, we've got the guy who finished second to him, Corey Sassoni.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Yes. Hi, Corey. You're going to have to tell us, first off, how to pronounce your last name, because we've been having a wondering here, and we'd like to know for sure. So how do you pronounce it?
It is Sir Cone.
Sircone. Okay.
It's a combination
Fantastic.
of the two rings. So, Corey Sircone, great race from you, P2. You know, there weren't too many gaps in the GT3 category. I mean, it was relatively close all the way through. You were kept on your toes quite a lot of the way in that race, weren't you?
Honestly, I wasn't able to breathe until I crossed that checkered flag. I'm trying to keep up with Brett and keeping Ted behind me. I honestly couldn't focus on anything except for just hitting my marks. So that whole race, I'm going to have to watch it back. I'm not going to lie, it's a total blur for me.
You've got the points, and that's what matters. You've got the P2, and you've got them all in your back pocket as we work our way through the calendar. You know, what were the main difficulties in that race, though, for you? Was it the pace that you were worried about, or were there problems with the car, the tyres? We heard how, you know, other drivers have had the issues with the tyres. What was the main challenge for you in that race? Fuel, tyres, or just the pace in general?
Well, I'm new to GT3s. This is only my second race I've ever done in one. So
Wow.
I kind of came into this race not knowing where I was going to sit. And I just kind of focused in on what was in front of me and tried to stay out of trouble. I knew from my race previously I'd have to I was afraid I'd burn my rear tires up, which, you know, obviously I ended up doing when I spun myself. But, I mean, other than that, no, I think the car handled great. A little bit of understeer here and there, but overall, I think I held it together pretty good and, you know, pretty pumped for the result there.
Yeah, you for a second race in the GT3, that's an incredible result to get P2. Full credit to you. Yeah, I mean, if that's anything to go by, if you get more practice in them, surely we're going to be talking to you again pretty soon.
Yeah, I sure hope so. It's only week 1, so got a few more weeks to try to get up there.
Exactly, and I have no doubt that you will. Well done, Corey. Yeah, hopefully we'll speak to you soon. And yeah, congratulations getting the points on the board, P2 in the opening round, and you're automatically in that championship picture.
Nice. Yes. Yeah. Thank you guys for having me on. You know, just wanna thank Big Fast Racing. They just kind of brought me on. This was my maiden race with them, so glad I could get a strong result for them. And also Pico Studios for the you know, the banger livery that they supplied for us this season. Really helps us stand out there. Looking forward to the next race and finishing out the season.
So are we. Looking forward to the next race. But well done to you and the team. And yeah, we will speak to you soon, Corey. Thanks very much.
Alrighty. Thank you, guys.
Fantastic stuff from Corey Sircone. Yes, Sircone, that is how you pronounce his last name. And finally, we've got Ted Lowendick here with us in one of the few Audis in the field. A podium for the German brand, Ted. You must be happy with that result.
Very. I didn't get along with Algrave. I don't even know how you say the name. Portimao, we'll go with that. Was more of a, Ted, you should practice more and get more comfortable with the track kind of evening. But we'll take a podium for the first race of the season. A good start, and hopefully we can build from there.
Indeed, you definitely seem to have a bit of an edge over Corey Sircone at points. It just seemed like the ebb and the flow of traffic was what helped to define that for you.
Yeah, I almost spun 3 or 4 times. I was missing the downshift from second to first and the hairpin a couple of times, and it was car really wanted to loop around. So I think after that I just got too tentative and was really delaying that shift, and it wasn't quick. But yeah, it was fun. I took too much fuel in the pit stop, and I think that was the difference. And yeah. Bunch of mistakes.
Well, regardless, mistakes or not, you still have a podium on the board in the first round of the championship, and you never know, there may very well be more to come. Thanks for joining us, Ted, and yeah, hopefully you're back up here again next week.
Thanks, guys. Hope the show was fun, and you guys had a good evening as well.
Certainly was a fun show. Ted Lowendick there, final of our podium getters in the GTP and GT3 categories. Dara, next week in the GTP and GT3 series, we go to the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit. Very much looking forward to that one. Super fun track, that.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, no doubt. Of course, the Grand Prix circuit. We've been at the Nordschleife recently, haven't we? It's been Nordschleife for season the last month and a half, but we're going to the Nürburgring and forgetting about, well, not quite forgetting about the Green Hell, but we're just ignoring its existence for next week. But we also can't forget, we've also got a LMP3 and GT4 race to go through, which, you know, today it was absolute carnage. I'm sure next week will be absolutely no different whatsoever. And looking forward to that one again, which should hopefully be another fantastic round. But thanks to everyone who has tuned in, who has commented along in the chat. Been great to see that update as we work our way through. I'm very glad we got Graham in for a chat, as that seemed to be a very popular pick. My thanks also to Reece Gardner for joining myself, Jareth Ag, up here in the commentary booth for the season opener here in PRL. Also thanks to Ramiro, who has been pushing all the buttons with all the lovely replays, making the broadcast look fantastic. But for now, we will see you in the coming weeks. Of course, don't forget, tomorrow is the opening round in PRL's series on a Tuesday. It's the GT3 Fix and Sprint series, so you want to make sure you tune in for that one tomorrow evening, of course, Wednesday and Thursday, starting up once again as we get into Season 3. But from us on the LMP3 GT4 Challenge and the GTP GT3 series, we'll see you in 7 days' time when we head off to not just the Nürburgring, but other tracks as well, for what should hopefully be some fantastic racing action.